One Henry, John Henry, 1990. John Henry, 1990. Trooper Cook, Highway Patrol. The reason why I stopped you, y'all not wearing a seatbelt. The reason why. What's the reason? Do what? Speak up. Do what? You're near what? Alright, well speak up when you file concern. On 64 here you didn't have a seatbelt on. The law says you gotta have it on no matter where you're at on the road. Get your driver's license, registration. ID. You don't have ID? You got any ID on you, sir? The reason why you wasn't wearing a seatbelt either? You just took it off? How much marijuana's in the vehicle? I can smell some. You saying there's nothing in the vehicle? Alright, you want to step out the vehicle then?
Do you want to call it a reckless or DUI if you take off? He's been swerving. There you go. Yeah. Move your hand real quick. Oh, stop. Go.
In a white t-shirt.
No worries.
Area is under video surveillance and you have...
These thugs stole his gun.
Hey, that's my gun, man. Get my bitch today, bro. Oh, don't do me like that, dog. Hey, come on, bro. Bro, come on, man. Don't do me like that, dog. Hey, y'all don't do me like that, bro. Hey, come on, dog. Hey, that was wrong, bro. Now.
Heather.
No fucking mercy. The finest boots will stomp upon your legacy.
Planned about 3 hours ago and... Wait a minute! A person surfing a Hillary wave out there!
Oh yeah.
We all know to stay clear of a great white shark if you happen to see one in the ocean. And if you've seen the movie Gun, then you know why. But this guy, it doesn't appear to be all that scary, at least from distance. That is until you get much closer. You see, wow, its mouth wide.
blades of grass. Just watch your foot in there. Let me put it this way, I'm not running away, I'm not a criminal. Just calm down.
Where did this come from?
The plane just dropped me off out of nowhere.
Plane?
Yeah.
Where's the plane?
Dropped me off wrong side. Just flew over that way.
What is up, everybody? Happy Sunday night. I hope you got your warm bootsies on and you're strapped in, because it's going to be about the best purge it could be here tonight. We got JJ Vance from the GCD podcast coming on tonight. We got Jenn. Tony's here. He's doing camera work again tonight, so you won't be seeing a lot of him. So he's working. He's sad. I guess Mick Jagger passed away. Love Tina put that in the chat. Thank you. If that's true, that's sad. What a legacy, right? That's a lot of people, it seems like, passed away. I checked the news. I didn't see that right before we started here, but man, that blows. Okay, so let's get to it. We got a lot to say the least tonight. Let's switch it over. And Jenn apparently, hopefully, has a new video for us to drop tonight that we're going to get to see here. If she can get it on my desk. So.
Haunting photos capture Olympic hopefuls.
Alright, so I can't, sorry, play the music here. I think you get the idea. Maybe I'll do a guitar trick or something. I haven't played in a couple days, so let's see. I don't want to stay on that one too long. Okay, so what do we got for you kids now? This guy. This is one of those ones, if you haven't seen it, you're gonna remember it.
Out of this uniform. You know why? Because bad things would happen to you.
You dumb piece of shit. Oh my god. Oh my god. What the f? It's a public sidewalk, you dumb shit. Look at that nice bill you got. What's wrong with you?
You see this guy? What's he doing? What is he doing?
You would never call me names if I was out of this.
Word on the street is that guy's still on the force somewhere. Coming at you.
Come on, no, 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 no.
Mimia. Mimia.
What is this, Chica? Oh, 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 oh.
Alright, sorry I got distracted. I'm trying to do my laundry at the same time as the show here. I don't know what this is. Yeah, there. Oh my God.
Most people have no clue that in 2024,
This guy is
the best
stuck
way to
like
make
Chuck.
money with Amazon is not the.
This is somewhere in Australia. Just when you thought you were safe. Funny thing, all he had to do was just paddle out over there. Over there. You'll see it's just an open beach right there. And he would have been fine. See? There's an open beach. He decided to sit on the rocks. I don't know what he was thinking. Just some kook. Alright, so here you go.
And in the process of going to close that door, the officer's foot is right there, and now. And in the process of going to close that door, the officer's foot is right there, and now you're faced with a very serious situation. Legally, you could argue that you are allowed to shut the door on this police officer's foot, because he is now entering into your home without a warrant, without your consent, and arguably he is trespassing. The problem? This is a very common trick used by the police because they know exactly how this works. You are now in a very difficult situation. Do you stand up for your rights and force the door closed, even if it were to hit that officer's foot? Or do you face the practical reality that most officers will use your attempt at shutting that door as a basis to claim their foot was now injured or hurt, and now they will use that to justify a takedown and possible arrest for assault and battery of...
Yep, you know the rigmarole there. Okay. Moving on.
Because the University of Idaho is so close, I was looking at Wayback Machine, which you probably know takes snapshots of websites at dates of time. And on that date when the crime occurred, uidaho.edu, it's an educational website, it's obviously a college, it goes down and shows a park domain at 6:32 a.m., which is only 2 hours after the crime, and it's sort of odd if you know technology, and anything going back to that domain or subdomain, let's say a surveillance camera or a security system, if that website was parked or down, anything communicating over DNS would not be able to communicate with it, and that's just why I found it interesting and figured I'd pass it along. Now, the Wayback Machine, you can go to it and type in uidaho.edu, right? And you can go back to dates and time. So this archives the internet, the system. And on the date, no, it takes snapshots of the University of Idaho's main website. So their website, right? But oftentimes in IT, if you have, let's say CNN, right, .com or FBI.com, an administrator will redirect traffic like a surveillance camera back to cameras.fbi.gov as an example. They'll use subdomains. So my point is that if the website was down, anything that then communicated with IT systems could potentially also not communicate. And it's just interesting because if you look at Wayback Machine, anyone can do it, you yourself or anyone looking to tip, you can go back on any date. And that's definitely an anomaly. And to have an anomaly at 6:30 a.m. When you guys are saying the murder occurred at 4 a.m., when they're 2 minutes from the university, is odd. I'll say, when we look for anomalies in IT, that's a weird one. So I'm just passing it along. That's correct. And so it was up at 11:30 p.m. the night before, and the Wayback Machine shows it down at 6:32 a.m. So we know that somewhere in between, from a technical standpoint, at the very least, that domain shows it was parked at 6:32 a.m. That is bizarre because if you look at it, I looked at it from all last night and I said, look, this could be just website traffic because people found out about the murder, but people didn't find out until noon. And downtime during a timeline of a murder is interesting, but what's more interesting to me at this point is that a lot of systems rely on DNS working properly, a website working properly, and what Wayback is showing is that it wasn't working properly at 11:38 p.m. right before the murder occurred. Now, me and Peter West were going back and forth, and you all have seen Peter West here before. We spoke on other cases, and he's pretty smart, smarter than me technically, and I tried to throw every theory I could at this, and really at the end of the day, we landed at the same spot, is that a human changed this. And the consequences of this change means that anything communicating back at the university would not be able to be delivered. Think of it this way, think of it like a phone book. I go to look up John Smith. That's the only thing I have, because for humans, it's easy to remember John Smith. I don't know what telephone number he has, so I have to open a phone book and look for what phone number John Smith has. DNS works much the same way. If I open that phone book and there's just no John Smith, I have nowhere to go. Same applies for any surveillance cameras on that university that were then sending surveillance footage back to their domain. If that's happening, that happens oftentimes in technical environments and infrastructures like this.
5 words you pronounce wrong. 2 years. Before your brain starts shutting down.
All right, that's from Heather. Pretty good link there. And let's keep it rolling. We got JJ on the line here. Hold on one second, JJ. All right.
Understand how difficult it is to explain a rap music video to an old Chinese man? We're just sitting there, and my dad was like, Jimmy, what I mean when he say Lamborghini Murcielago? And I'm like, Dad, he's bragging about his car. It's a Lamborghini Murcielago, very expensive car. You know what that is, right? And it's like, oh, okay, yes. That's when you know they have no idea what the fuck you just said. Jimmy, what did he mean when he say, your chick, she's so thirsty, or what's that? And I was like, shit. Dad, he's making fun of somebody's girlfriend, okay? Saying like she likes attention from other guys, and she likes to do sex stuff with them. You know, like blowjobs and such. And he's like, oh, okay, yes. Blowjobs, okay. Jimmy, I'm thirsty too, okay? So I was like, oh, God, no. Do you understand how...
Yo, what's cracking, everyone? First of all, it's all alleged speculation, my theory, my personal opinion.
Very interesting, is that somebody was adding, okay, as I was adding information to the tree, I added Mr. Kohlberger's mother. And when I added his mother, her obituary came up from 1999. But somebody added her obituary, added her information January the 5th, 2023. So why would somebody be updating the Kohlberger's family tree 5 days after his arrest? All right, that's serious for me. Now, I wanted to know who was updating Mr. Kohlberger's family tree information. So I opened up the obituary that was added by Marilyn Sawyer. It says it was originally shared on the 4th of January from newspapers.com. And it says that Miss Sawyer was in Elmira, New York. It also says there at the bottom that the information was saved by 7 different people. And 2 of them are just initials. You can't really tell who it is. And the other 5 are just, more investigation. But anyway, after looking at this, I want to know who Miss Sawyer was. And so even though it says she lives in Elmira, New York, or that's where she was when she shared the information, I looked her up, and she is in her 60s, and according to Ancestry, she lives in Georgia. I found one Marilyn Sawyer in Hiram, Georgia, 64 years old. She's had like 12 different addresses, and I haven't found any link between her and the Kohlbergers to where she would be interested in their family tree. I don't understand why she really didn't want to leave a trail or sharing it, but there's something up with that. Okay, so also Mr. Kohlberger had 3 hints, and they looked new. All of it said new. So even though I only showed obituary, it's possible that all 3 of those hints were new, shared in January. And so they had started building the Kohlberger tree right after his arrest. That's huge to me. Absolutely huge. What do you think about this one?
Big shout out to Hard Truth. She's the first one that discovered all that, and that they hadn't found any DNA. But check this out. I was comparing these the famous masked man, and I don't think it's him. I don't know about this one, but I don't think so. But I did find interesting things, I try to compare the sister, but I don't think it's her neither. But look at the other one on the right. Or the one in the Jeep, inside the Jeep. That image is straight up him. Well, who is this guy? He was inside allegedly his Ethan's Jeep that morning. That picture was I believe taken on the 12th or early morning on the 13th, probably his DM. But I don't know, I'll trip on this.
Can you also give a little more information on the forced entry? There's no sign of forced entry, but was the door, did it seem like any of the entries were left unlocked by any means?
I'll answer the last part there just because it's at the front end of my mind. We're not 100% sure if the door was unlocked, but there was no damage to anything, and the door was still open when we got there. I'll answer the last part there just because it's at the front end of my mind. We're not 100% sure if the door was unlocked, but there was no damage to anything, and the door was still open when we got there.
The okay. I feel a mask. But if I have like a free grub truck on my app.
Oh, yep. So what you want to do is we'll actually do this.
I feel a mask. But if I have like a free grub truck on my app.
Oh, yep.
I feel a mask. I feel a mask.
All right, so great video, Rolo. I gotta keep it rolling. Let's one more. Okay, we don't even need to even do that. All right, let's get JJ up here. I can't wait to have him. JJ, if you're ready, go ahead and hop in, and we'll get you started here. Come on up. You got Jenn. We got Rockford tonight, so it's a pretty big show here. We got the Occult Rejects in the house. Thanks for coming in, man. Nice to see you. Love Tina. I don't know what's going on. Thanos, what's up, brother? And Translucency here with her avatar. So good things happening. Dan the Man also. And I think we're gonna have JJ. Where's JJ at? I told him 9 o'clock around-ish. Maybe I'll keep going till I hear him pop in. Alright, here we go. Let's see, where was I? Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Skip that. This is the full video of the guy getting
Many times. I can't stop watching it. You are the one there. You're paddling. The waters look very choppy, cold, gray. And then all of a sudden you disappear for several seconds. Can you tell me what happened?
Yeah, I was at Bahía El Águila. We were on our back raft, and suddenly I felt like a wave struck me from behind, but it was very, very heavy to be anything like that. So when I turned around, I saw some blue dark colors and white flashing right through my face, and I felt a slimy texture in my cheek.
That's crazy. So he got swallowed by a whale and spit out.
I didn't know what chicken does to cortisol until I saw this.
Chicken and rice is the best meal to help you.
I think will be very supportive, and we've also been told that the CIA director is very supportive. To put it in perspective, I think that this issue transcends not just one administration, but multiple administrations, and it hasn't been until now that we've been able to get people actually in positions of power that will push for transparency. Now, if I find that different entities in the various intelligence agencies are stonewalling us, I'm going to make that known to the American people. But as of right now, we are cautiously optimistic.
What's your priority list? Is Epstein, 9/11?
Our first investigation will be announced, but it's going to be covering on a thorough investigation into the John F. Kennedy assassination. And I can tell you, based on what I've been seeing so far, the initial hearing that was actually held here in Congress was actually faulty in the single bullet theory. I believe that there were two shooters, and we should be finding more information as we are able to gain access into the SCIF, hopefully before the files are actually released to the public.
Thank you for doing this. Have you identified the Democrats who will sit on the task force, and could you talk a little bit more about the role of Democrats in this?
Yeah, so again, this is a bipartisan commission. Remember, JFK was a Democrat, RFK was a Democrat, and I'm sure that I think the entire conference has a question on what actually happened with Dr. Martin Luther King, but also UAPs. You guys know that that was the biggest bipartisan bicameral hearing that we've ever had, I think, in congressional history. I do not know who their members are yet. They've noticed it, but they're taking this very seriously. This is not a conspiracy theory investigating committee. We're actually looking to present truth to the American people. And it's in my opinion that no one person elected to office is more important or more qualified to look at the information that they've been hiding from us. And so we look to push for that transparency.
What sort of witnesses will you expect to have at your hearings? I know you said the first one's in March. Would that be department heads, former employees of various agencies?
Would you like to jump in? Yeah, I was going to say, based on what we're actually looking to do with the JFK investigation, I'm looking to actually bring in some of the attending physicians at the initial assassination, and then also people that had been on the various commissions looking into, like the Warren Commission looking into the initial assassinations. There's been conflicting evidence, and I think that even the FBI at the time reported some anomalies in the initial autopsy at Bethesda, Maryland. All of those, though, seem to have been rinsed and repeated in the media to push a certain narrative that we don't agree with. And so I think that in order to put to bed some of the theories that have been out there on John F. Kennedy, we have to know the full truth. And the full truth starts with transparency. And that's why these files is so important for the American people to read for themselves.
I thought I saw a follow-up. That was from a couple days ago. And I'm pretty sure the follow-up was, yeah, I think there's two shooters. I don't know how much transparency we're ever going to get out of that, man. Giving up. Wait for you. JJ, whenever you're ready, brother, come on down and hit me up.
To say that police in Idaho are baffled tonight might be an understatement. 4 college kids at the University of Idaho were found dead in a barbaric scene. A savage killer having used a military-styled knife to butcher all of them. And that killer is still on the loose tonight. The autopsies have now been completed, and the coroner who performed them is kind enough to be live with me tonight. Kathy Mabott is the Latah County medical examiner. Ms. Mabott, thank you so much for being here. The first question I have for you is, what was the condition of the bodies when they arrived at your lab?
Well, I am not the medical examiner. I'm the coroner, and the autopsies were done in Spokane, Washington, at the medical examiner's office up there. So,
were you present for any of it, or you received their results?
No, I was there when the autopsies were done.
So were you able to determine that the conditions of the bodies when they arrived?
Yes, they had multiple stab wounds, and all of them have been ruled murders.
All of them had been ruled murders, yes. I don't have to say the obvious, but it is extremely difficult to stab 4 people to death. So that's why I asked the specifics about the conditions. Were there defensive wounds? Was there anything unique to their wounds that would have told a story?
There are likely some defensive wounds, but no, there just were a lot of stab wounds. And so, I mean, it was late at night or early in the morning. So it seems likely that maybe they were sleeping.
Were they found in separate areas of the house?
That hasn't been disclosed yet.
Can you tell me, when you say that they might have been sleeping, were they found in beds?
Yes.
And so can you tell me if there were multiple stab wounds per victim, or were these sort of, individual lethal stab wounds that may have been less in number, but more in lethality?
There were multiple stab wounds, yes, on them. So, and
were there? Go ahead.
And most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound. Yes.
Can you describe what that one might have been?
But they were to the fatal ones were to the chest area or the upper body area.
Were there, and I only ask this because it sometimes determines what kind of a crime this was, a crime of passion, a random crime, a fight, a struggle. Was there, were any of them slashed? Were any of their necks cut? Or were these all puncture wounds?
Well, it was a pretty large knife, so it's really hard to call them puncture wounds. Well, it was a pretty large knife, so it's really hard to call them puncture wounds.
It's coming, Jackie. It's coming.
Stabbings. And I mean, it has to be somebody that's pretty angry in order to stab 4 people to death.
What's up, Missy girl?
So it's fascinating that I'm reading that the DNA testing is still to come, that those bodies are going to go to a crime lab for DNA testing. But we are, this is Sunday that this happened. We're multiple days since, and there's a killer on the loose. I'm curious as to why the DNA testing hasn't happened already.
Well, the bodies have been released to the families. The DNA testings were, things from the crime scene have been sent to forensic labs for DNA testing, and then there were lots of swabs that were taken at the autopsies, as well as fingernail clippings, their clothing. All of those things have been taken to the forensic lab for the DNA testing. That's where it would come from.
And that doesn't, it usually takes a long time, but when there's an exigent circumstance like this, it's often expedited. Do you expect that these results will come back quickly?
He's looking for
Again,
attention,
there's a
Angel D.
killer
You
on the
better
loose,
stay
so
in
to
here,
know
girl.
that DNA result would be critical.
What's up, Social Glow? How you
I
doing?
don't know the time frame, but yes, it's all being expedited.
Stay
There's
here,
lots
Angel
of,
D. Stay.
Idaho State Police, Forensic Lab, and the FBI, and so they have all been transported in there. They're working on those things.
All right, everybody. Put your hands together and we'll welcome in JJ Vance, not the vice president right here. And let's see, we should be able to hear you right now. Hold on, let me see, hold on. My bad, I can't hear you yet. That ought to do it. Are you there? Let's try this. What's up, man? Let me put you in the thing. Where does it go? Oh, there it is. Okay. Can you hear me? I don't see a camera image. Are you just coming in audio? Oh, there you are. Okay. Let me see where my audio is at. There it is. Gotta find that. Okay. What's going on?
Good to go. Kane, how you doing?
All right, man. Good to see you. Let me see why I don't see you in the... Okay, I know why. There you are. Okay, and... Hold on. There's some delay or something. My bad.
Hold on. Oh, no worries.
Oh, do you have a window open? There's a little bit of echo.
Now let me log back off and log back in to make sure my headphones and everything connected properly, because I'm in the settings here and I can't get it to switch.
True,
so let me jump back in here.
Okay. All right, I was trying to get some music playing back in here. Chick crew, is that what chick crew today? All right. That's weird. Why is it doing this? Of course, now it's doing this. Okay.
I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfect. Yep. Let me see here. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, okay. I know what's going on. Close that. Give me 1 second. Okay, and then we'll be able to see in a second, brothers. All right. Technical difficulties here. There he is. Okay. All right. Let me go back. Oops. Oh, wrong page. There you are. Okay, and then full screen it. Boom. There we go. Cool. How you doing?
Good, sir. How you doing this evening?
Great, thank you. Nice to see you. Big fan. A lot of us in here are.
I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, I'm stoked to have you on. How long?
Hey, there I am.
How long you been at it?
Well, how long I've been the host of Operation GCD.
Yeah.
Let's see. I suppose May of 2016, I believe.
Okay. And you guys had a show before that, or?
No, I did some, kind of a more of a hobby back then, maybe 2016 to 2020, and took a brief break, kind of a hiatus, just doing like guest appearances on folk shows, and then kind of got back at it maybe 2 years ago, January 2023.
Was it Idaho 4 that brought you in, or just you? I mean,
yeah.
you seem to have a knowledge.
It was the Idaho 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
When about did you get in? Like in the beginning, or?
When did I start looking at the Idaho 4 situation? I'd say Thanksgiving. So about 2 weeks after the murders.
Yeah, about the same as me. I was gonna say you seem to have a pretty good knowledge of a lot of subjects, and I'm really interested in. Yeah, it's amazing. We have a Heather here who has like a photographic memory and writes everything down, and then I came across you and I'm like, wow, this is a whole different angle. You had a show with was it New England George?
Ron, New England, Ron from New England.
Ron from New England, thank you.
Yep.
And you guys were talking about the fall of the FFX.
Yeah,
and
FTX, yep.
I thought that was a pretty interesting angle, because the way I was hoping maybe you could expound on it a little bit more, as far as if you're in the know, you kind of saw how those events sort of dominoed into the murders.
Yeah, for sure. I can definitely unpack those ideas and kind of where my thought process was, and just even kind of reaching that conclusion. So from
what I understand, that Sam, he lost $16 billion in one day, right? And
wow, yeah. The whole FTX situation and Sam Bankman-Fried is yet to really be fully discovered. I mean, it's really only scratched the surface as far as the criminalities and money laundering involved in that whole network. And very deeply tied to politics. I mean, not just the donations, politically speaking. His folks are deeply tied to politics. For example, his father wrote a bill for Senator Warren's office a few years ago. She's a senator from Massachusetts. He's a professor at Stanford. I'm not exactly certain the relations there, but he did write a bill for her office, maybe around 2015 or so.
There's so many cozy bedfellows in politics, local and federal, that it'll make your head spin. Really, I mean, there's a lot of nepotism, which is just an understatement. And some of the stuff that you and the occult rejects have talked about, man, I'm just like, okay, wait, I want to hear more about that. And then you got me on Son of Sam, and then you had the Civil War one, which is my favorite topic. I love anybody that knows a little bit more than the Ken Burns effect, you know.
Right.
So,
no, I appreciate it. Yeah, those are some of my favorite topics too. Obviously, I really like the alternative looks at American history, and a lot of what I do in that regard is focused around the folks that started America, the secret society of George Washington. He didn't necessarily start it, but he was the leader of it, the first president general of it. And it was comprised of all of his officers from the Revolutionary Army. So, and subsequently still exists today because it's passed down radically through the bloodlines of typically the firstborn male of each descendant of that original officer. But the rules get a little bit, they get a little wacky over time. And I got a lot of examples in that regard. But to make a long story short, these people are very still, just because they started America, this secret society, the Society of the Cincinnati, they still run shit today. And the Civil War, they can frame it as slavery, but what really occurred here is this society, this secret society, the Society of the Cincinnati, they had a civil war that then unfolded into the American Civil War. They actually divided before the states did.
So many people say that the Civil War wasn't even about slavery.
Sure.
Obviously money driven, and I think it was on your show where you talked about how Abraham Lincoln was surrounded by Masons, or maybe it was Jenn that brought it up to us. And you have a picture of like U.S. Grant, and the people he was surrounded by were all Masons.
Sure.
So
but again, I know. I hate to interject there on the Mason things. I do think it is important, but I think it all back to the Society of Cincinnati. These people are all members, right? So Grant, he would have been a member just by virtue of being, and Lincoln, both virtue of, their heritage, right?
Right.
So every U.S. president is also a member of this organization, the secret society. However, I think the people that are real, the real big figures in American history, these little focal points, Lincoln being a great example, these folks, I think, fall into two categories. They're a hereditary member of this organization, and they happen to be elected president. Now, publicly, they won't recognize that. However, Lincoln's grandfather, his paternal grandfather, was an officer in the Revolution. So somebody in Lincoln's family, a first cousin, no more distant, would have been a member of the Society of Cincinnati. I assert it was Lincoln.
And you always have that same story, the humble beginnings and the political angles that they put into their narrative. Where does it go from there? Would you say?
As far
you have
goes?
You have obvious examples with George Washington. They say at the Philadelphia meetings in 1776, he was already dressed in a general's uniform, coming to all the meetings. So he was prepared for war, and he obviously always pushed for it. And then he actually got in there and fought it, and they billed it as a war over tea. They're going to tax our tea. Okay, let's kill everybody.
Right. Yeah, these are the Disney-like fairy tales were sold as American history, though, right? These tea wars, right?
Yeah, that's it.
You're spot on. You're spot on. That Washington was ready for war because here's the thing that folks don't tell us in throughout history, which there's not any concrete evidence, but all the evidence exists, in circumstantial evidence exists to paint this picture. That George Washington was facing treason charges by King George at the time of the Revolution. So he was he was gung-ho about some war, because here's the deal with George. He was the number 2 commanding officer for the British Army in America. He was a young officer, made the ranks real quick. He was a colonel. So the Brits sent over, and this is a pretty infamous prelude to the Revolution. But it's not quite captured by modern day historians the way it should be, and is how important it really was. It's called the General Braddock's defeat or something like that, I believe is what it's commonly referred to. But General Edward Braddock was the commanding officer for the British Army in the colonies. They shipped him over because apparently George was fucking up. And George leads them into what would be an ambush. So they go to the area which is today Washington, Pennsylvania.
What year is this?
This would be 1765.
Oh wow, way back.
No, I'm sorry. Take it back one more notch. This would be 1757, I believe.
No kidding.
Yeah. George was a colonel at the age of like 26.
He still had all his teeth at that point, I'm guessing. That's crazy. Okay, so he was.
So, they lead General Braddock into what turns out it's during the French Indian Wars, right? So they are going to Fort Pitt there near Pittsburgh, near Washington. Washington, PA is just south of Pittsburgh, and they get ambushed, and General Braddock's murdered. Now, my position is Washington led him into an ambush because I actually have numerous forefathers that were on that mission, and you'll recognize other folks that survived that same mission along with George. It only happened to Braddock and all these other guys and Braddock's guys got murdered. George and all of his guys walked away scot-free. Folks like Lewis and Clark. They were on that mission as well. So these, at least I believe Meriwether Lewis was. I'm not sure about William Clark. I think William Clark's elder brother, who was a major figure in the society, General Rogers Clark, I believe he was on that mission. So there's again, all of George's folks survived that ambush. His boss, the commanding officer, gets killed, and George would prominently wear a red sash the rest of his military career. That was General Braddock's sash. So whatever happened to that ambush, he went ahead and took General Braddock's sash off his dead body and wore it around as a war trip for the rest of his life.
There's some history they don't teach in school. Damn.
Yeah.
I remember talking about the French Indian Wars, but beyond, sorry, I have to fight the microphone when I have a guest, so my audio is a little up and down. I apologize for that, but
no worries.
It's the price I pay to use OBS. For some reason, the StreamYard, it just freezes the audio for me, so I just have to struggle with the volume on this. So he wore the red sash, and he has the general
murder. He Merck's his boss. Then he marries Martha Dandridge Eustace. This is her second marriage. Her first marriage was to Daniel Eustace. Daniel Custis. Custis. Daniel Custis. He was the largest private landowner in America at that. So this is like 1758. George was the second largest private landowner in America. So when he married the widowed, wife of Daniel Custis, he inherited all of his property. George was substantially the largest private landowner in the colonies as a result of that. So he just murdered the commanding officer. He then retires from the British Army, marries Martha, becomes by far the wealthiest real estate landowner in the colonies, and then so obviously the Brits had beef with him. So he was by 1776 he was definitely ready to go to work because I'm convinced they had treason charges against him. It's just not publicly known.
Was that known among the Philadelphia Congress, or?
I think it's one of those open secrets amongst certain elements of our society, specifically the Society of Cincinnati.
And they probably all had charges on their head.
Oh yeah.
So that's why you got John Hancock and the big signature, like, F you, King George, come and get me, and they send the Kentucky militia after him.
For sure, and it's really not sold as these guys had treason charges, but they absolutely would have had treason charges. Like, we're not sold the British version of these guys are dicks, but obviously the Brits were saying these guys are dicks, we're going to kill them.
You didn't have to do much back then to get a warrant over your head. We obviously had no rights, and he had murdered his boss. So that's crazy.
King George would have not been happy.
Yeah, the colonies were out of control. They were out of his hands for sure, and everybody here was sick of it. So where does it go from there? We went way back in the Wayback Machine right there. I guess.
But as far as the American history goes, a lot of the stuff I cover right there is trying to unpack things from day one. Right? How did we get here today?
Yeah, well, you had the same thing with General Lee, with Arlington and that whole family thing. He inherited a lot of land, and then they kind of put that in his face by putting the cemetery there. And throughout history,
I think that was part of it. That's a good point, though. That's part of the same family feud, as I would claim. So, Robert E. Lee essentially marries the daughter of George Washington's adopted son. So, Martha Dandridge Custis Washington, she had, I think, 3 or 4 kids, 2 boys, maybe 2 girls, with Daniel Custis. So, and he died, and her and George raised those kids. And so, those are basically his kids. But one of the offsprings of those kids, who they named George Washington Parke Custis, he was essentially adopted by George and Martha and raised from a very young age as their own child. It was Martha's grandson biologically, and George's step grandson. But they'd raised him as their own child. His daughter was Robert E. Lee's wife. So essentially, we're back to a Washington family feud going on there. And as a result of the end of the Civil War, the Lee family lost all their property, like you pointed out there, with Arlington National Cemetery.
And fast forward to 1963, and I feel like that was. Let me try something real quick, JJ.
Sure.
I want to see if I could tell me. Let me try something. I'm gonna turn this thing off. Tell me if you can still hear me, okay?
Yep.
I'm talking. Can you hear me now? Wait.
Good. Yep.
Wait. What about now?
Nope.
No. Okay. It was worth a try. All right. So sorry about the audio, guys. It's great to have JJ on. So I'm trying to let you do most of the talking because I'm the imbecile here. You're the guy we want to bleed for information, so to speak. So, if you guys don't know, on one of his shows, wow, I think that fixed it. Can you still hear me? Oh. Wait, what happened? JJ, can you hear me? We lost him. Oh, I lost him. Hold on.
I can't. Yeah, I can't hear you.
You can't. I know. I'm trying to fix this. There we go. How about now? Uh-oh. Hold on. Let me refresh the page. Okay, now you can hear me?
Yep, good to go.
So I was saying that you have the whole 6 degrees from Manson thing, right?
yeah, for sure.
And what's your Manson rating?
Mine's a 3. I got a Manson score of 3.
And that's because
if the man on his birth certificate is believed to be his father, there has been some contention over the years, but the man is believed to be his father, and his mother was a Maynard from Pikeville, Kentucky, and my great grandfolks are Maynards from Pikeville, Kentucky, first cousin Maynards, in fact.
My stepfather was a Maynard. I don't know where they hailed from. He had a restaurant in Bradenton, Florida here called Woody Riley's. And he was probably kind of more New York Maynard, I guess I'd say, but I think I had a Manson score of 1 because I shook Gerald Ford's hand in 1974.
Oh, shit, there you go.
So that was as close as I got.
The year prior to the attempts of 2 Manson girls on Ford's life, there in September of '75,
which was after the arrest of the Tate Bianca girls, right?
Oh yeah. Chuck and gang had just got let off of. I think they overturned the death penalty in California in '74. It was about a year and a half after the convictions, I believe. So they at that point in time, they would just be sitting in there for life. I know a couple of them got out, but they would have been sitting there for life, as per the convictions. But yeah, Squeaky Fromm, Manson girl, I think she just got out, if I'm not mistaken, or I believe she did, or was trying to get out maybe. She tries to kill Ford, and I think maybe the first week of September, in and around Sacramento, the capital there in California, and then 3 weeks later, some 41-year-old, 42-year-old housewife. She's not employed. She has 3 or 4 kids or whatever. She tries to kill Ford in San Francisco, and turns out she grew up with Charles Manson. They used to run around together when they were young teenagers there in West Virginia.
So he started MK Ultraing her back in middle school, and triggered her one day.
The Manson story is it's one of my favorites. It's been a long interest of mine. I've read just about every book that's been published on the subject. It's interesting for sure, and I have a lot of thoughts on the ideas of who he was and what he did. But nonetheless, he was certainly involved in some nefarious shit.
So when we get to Idaho 4, I know you like talking about it. It seems like you've got a big group of friends, really great group, the panels you guys do.
Sure, yeah, for sure, yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, Ron from New England brings a nice, unique perspective, as does Nick, the host of the Occult Rejects. I think we all threw different kind of unique perspective on the subject of crime in general, but specifically the Idaho 4. So yeah, I appreciate that. We really enjoy those conversations with those guys.
Yeah, it seems like you're the most vested, though. I see Nick biting his fingers and rolling his eyes once in a while when you start getting deep into the Idaho 4. What's your take on it as far as general take right now with everything, especially?
Yeah, I can give you a broad overview. In fact, I was checking out some of your before I do that though. I was checking out some of your videos, Kane, and you got quite a lot of coverage on the Idaho 4 topic. It looks like from what I've seen, you've gone pretty deep.
I've been very lucky. I have 2 girls that bring me stuff, and I'll come into the show like, what am I gonna do? I don't have anything, and then all of a sudden, Jenn from Criminal Confidential or Heather Fitzgerald will just drop a bomb. And I'm like, and I'll when they bring it to me, I'm like, oh, this is some other wacky conspiracy theory. Yeah, it's freshman, sophomore. And then we start getting into it. I'm like, holy shit, this is just really out there. And when you started talking about Process Church, the puzzle pieces started to connect for me. And now you're adding the Cincinnati connection. And the funny part was with the Dave Chappelle, did he buy a zoo? What was is in Cincinnati, right?
Dave Chappelle, yeah, he's got a farm in Yellow Springs, Ohio. I'm actually the next town over from there.
Oh, right.
He's got a comedy club there now too.
Now, is he against, or he's against the process, right? Or is he part of it?
Well, he's definitely Scientology. There's no doubt about that, because he's a long-term Nation of Islam, and around 2005, maybe 2006, Louis Farrakhan signed up all of Nation of Islam for Scientology. I mean, obviously that's a capitalist move for him as well, because they're all on his downstream, so he's getting 10% of all those purchases. But they both believe in aliens, so they're both these ancient alien cargo cults. So there's a lot of, despite being one a black nationalist and essentially a white nationalist cult. It seems like strange bedfellows, but they seem to get along. But yeah, so by virtue of him being Nation of Islam, he's technically a Scientologist, where he is relative to the process. So, in my opinion, the process is Scientology, and I think folks like Dana from Rotting Jewels has really flushed a lot of that out, and a lot of her research she's done over there on both subjects, the Scientology subject and the process. And in fact, speaking of the Society of Cincinnati in the process, she's also found origins with the founding members of the process being from Society of Cincinnati families, including a member of the cult who is a member of the Society of Cincinnati, a fellow by the name of William Bainbridge, or at least likely a member. His grandfather was a member, so paternal grandfather. So somebody got that membership from there. So, and he's named after his grandfather. So it's a good. I think it's a strong assertion that he's probably a member.
Well, it's easy to say that Scientology is about money and power and land and whatever.
Sure.
But what would you say that, I know you've talked about Tolkien and Lewis and their backgrounds. And I saw one of the Lewis one got deleted. I wondered if you just took that down or if YouTube took that down for a topic. I wanted to watch it again. It was one of the first ones.
I didn't take it down. Must have got deleted. I'm not sure.
Wow.
Look.
Yeah, that was one of the first ones I watched. But how do you feel that L. Ron Hubbard kind of where did he get his riz? Where did that come from? Because it's not just because I don't think he was a science fiction writer. All of a sudden, like, oh, well, any religion he starts, I'll just give him millions of dollars. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, he was a character, old L. Ron. I've done a lot of study and research into Scientology and specifically his activities in life. In fact, at one point in time, I spent 20 years in the Air Force as an MP. I retired a few years ago, 2019. One point in time, I was stationed in D.C. for 6 years, and one of my apartments there was across the street from L. Ron Hubbard's childhood home, which is also a Scientology center. So
in England, it's in England.
No, it's in Washington D.C.
Washington D.C. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I was living there at the time when Anonymous started all their protests. So all of a sudden, I had anonymous people across the street from my apartment, kind of deal. You know what I mean? Protesting L. Ron Hubbard's childhood home, and it's like a library and Scientology center now. It's just, I think that was probably the first thing that really cued me into Scientology. But yeah, I mean, L. Ron's an interesting character. He's a spook in my opinion. So as far as his Riz goes, I mean, kind of goes with being a spook. I think.
I've heard that L. Ron, and this is a wild one, and I don't know if you've heard this too, but supposedly L. Ron Hubbard and Aldous Huxley did some type of time travel thing or something like that. Was kind of where I was looking to hear you say. So I didn't want to get too wacky on you, but I wondered if... Oh, what happened? I hope he didn't get mad about the L. Ron Hubbard thing. Hang in there 1 sec. We'll get him back. Did I click you out?
Oh, I'm back. Yep, I couldn't hear you. Cut it. I heard Aldous Huxley.
That him and Aldous Huxley did some type of teleporting or dimensional time travel thing, and that they were spooks, and that they that I figured that was where the momentum started with these rumors of them, and then this is where the ideas from their books come from and all this, and around here in Clearwater, in apartments I've lived at, I'll see the entire course of the Scientology program in the dumpster, like videotapes and books. And these people pay thousands of dollars for these classes, and it's almost like a college campus. At the end of the semester, you see the couches on the curb. Well, you see the Scientology books stacked up in the dumpster. Their enrollment has really gone down as far as bringing in new members. But they're getting the wealthiest of the wealthy. So what they do is they bring them over from like Switzerland, wine them and dine them, get them to the big banquets, and then capture them. But what happened is, like with Rhea Remini, a lot of them got to the top, and then when they were like, oh yeah, you're clear now, the whole secret was there's bugs on your face, and they're talking to you at all times. Then the higher level members just kind of dropped out, is what I've been hearing. That happens
a lot. Yeah, that happens a lot. So I think, I'm not going to say her specifically. Oh, shoot. I'm not going to say her specifically, but certainly she's involved in the mix. She's the one who signed up Nation of Islam. So the reason why all the Nation of Islam is part of Scientology, Leah Remini brokered that deal. Did I lose you?
No, that would make sense. I have to process some of the shit you say, because obviously that I know it goes against what you'll see in the media, obviously, right?
Oh yeah.
That's a crazy one. Yeah, they do hold a lot of power. If David Muskovich can get away with sending people away, then what can't he do?
Oh yeah. Oh no, that's a great point. I've always said that too. Imagine if the CEO of Coca-Cola decided to make his wife disappear. People would lose their fucking minds. David Miscavige can do it, and it's no big deal,
Well, nobody wants to get in within arm's reach of that church. They will.
Well, again, it goes back to the spook stuff. So I think right now, I think you had O&I guy, L. Ron Hubbard, get ousted by CIA guy, David Miscavige, and now you have what I presume is a MI6, joint MI6, possibly CIA situation, former CIA guys. Because you got Miscavige's number 2, Marty Rathbun. He left the church, rounded up all these former dissidents of Scientology, fucked them over, and then went back into Scientology, became the number 2 guy again. So that doesn't make any sense.
Wow.
He's real tight with Leah Remini too.
Well, they do that all the time when they're buying new properties now, because nobody will technically sell to Scientologists So they send in agents. Oh no, I'm not a Scientologist at all, and then they'll buy acres and acres of land. And oh yeah, sorry, I was a Scientologist. I didn't mean to fool you. That's their MO, really.
No, that's for sure how they operate. They're never upfront about anything. But yeah, so I think the process being an MI6 operation, largely with joint effort with consent by the CIA. There's a lot of back and forth between these different spook agencies to take control of what this quote unquote religious outfit is really just a private military operation. It's a private military and intel operation, that operates around the world, and they've been banished from a number of countries. In fact, I believe Russia just kicked them out. They just got banned from Russia. Scientology did.
You're talking about Scientology?
Has always been. What's that?
I thought you were talking about process.
Well, yeah. So the process has always been the black wing of Scientology. Whether or not it's known publicly, I think these governments know that.
So I know there's one question that some of my viewers have here, and it's about the pancake breakfast, the Sunday pancake breakfast group. Are you familiar? You're familiar with that? I know I'm not saying it right. That all the presidents would meet on Sunday, and they would have the frat boys that they were grooming, or whatever. Are you familiar with this one?
No, it sounds interesting.
Yeah, actually, I'll pull up a link, but oh my gosh, yeah, it's a really big thing, and I wondered what the connection was with that. Maybe we can save that one for next time, and we'll both look into it. And,
yeah, I was gonna say I can go on for a long time about these cults and American history, and I recommend folks check out Operation GCD for more than any of these topics we've already discussed. But back to the Idaho 4 stuff is what we wanted to discuss here, and I'm not sure cults are necessarily that disparate of a topic away from the Idaho 4 situation. I don't have a great depth of understanding of what the cult activity is going on around that area, other than saying it's always been a cult town, right? The Moscow, Idaho, was started by a cult. The university, that is, specifically. So that town was started by the university. The first president of the university, his wife, along with the wives of other original faculty, started something called the Pleiades Club, which was something based upon some sort of astrotheological myth with the Pleiades start, constellation or whatever.
Which would be highly related to the LDS Church, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking Mormon country up there in Idaho. I mean, a lot of folks just think it's Utah. I grew up Mormon. I was a Mormon until I was about the age of 20. And I went to seminary. I was full-blown Mormon.
Wow.
My mother expected me to go on a mission. I told her no, but she still expected it for some reason. Because you got to go to seminary school as a Mormon to be able to qualify to go on a mission. So I've been to the temple. I've baptized folks for the dead. I've done all that stuff. But yeah, so I'm quite familiar with the Mormons and their activities. And Idaho's deep Mormon country. It always has been. I haven't found a lot of crossover. I was one of the first things I looked at too. I couldn't really find the Mormons' hands in any of this Idaho 4 Moscow situations.
Well, you have Hitler, who's we've pretty much figured out that he's involved with the Masons and the Latter-day Saint legislature representation in Latah County seems to be very strongly Mormon. How would you figure the Christ Church would figure into this whole controversy?
Yeah, and that's kind of the same way I look at what you just described. There are Mormons dancing around the outskirts of the politics in that region of Idaho. Because Idaho, have you ever been there before?
I have. Yes.
Nice. So have you been where in Idaho have you been to?
It was near Boise. We stayed on a lake. I was dating the heiress to the McDonald's fortune. And they built this huge cabin next to the Potato People and the Heinzes on some lake. And
it sounds like they're balling.
They were balling. It was quite Joan Kroc came and visited, and she was with the owner of Paradigm, which was a company my brother did a summer internship with in Largo, Florida here. And that was kind of a trip. I'm like, yeah, my brother used to work for you. And I think Paradigm went belly up. But Joan was a character, too. And they used to tell me about their grandfather all the time, the founder and stuff like that.
Sure.
He was a railroad man, and he was, kind of obnoxious and loud. And he was a lot of fun for them as their grandfather. But yeah, it was beautiful up there. That's all I know.
Sure.
But they're like, whatever you do, don't get in trouble.
No, that's an awesome story. In fact, it sounds like an awesome time too. But that's a great example of what Idaho's like. So, the area around Boise that you experience is nothing like the area over there in the Palouse where Moscow is. In fact, it's about 4 hours away. And you've also encapsulated the amount of wealth that exists in that state. So yeah, the Mormons are definitely around. So you're always going to have some Mormons in the mix. Those Christ Church people, they're definitely an odd bunch. I just can't find them intersecting with much of the politics or anything involved in it, or even the drug trafficking involved in the situation. They don't, on the face at least, they don't seem to be much connected to that stuff. I look more towards the wealth, like you're pointing out, these multi-millionaire, generational families that have invested in wealth and real estate in that area throughout the whole state, from down there in Boise, all the way up to like Sandpoint, Idaho, where a couple of the victims are from. That's that area up there around Spokane is very prominent. Coeur d'Alene, the Idaho side. Very, a lot of wealthy folks have moved up there throughout the years. A lot of Hollywood folks. Then of course you got, the white nationalist compounds up there around Sandpoint. And in fact, they recently did another Hollywood movie about the subject, I believe. The Order, that is, the folks that, some of the folks that came from that were involved in some multi-state crime sprees, killings, robberies, murders, etc. An interesting character associated with those folks is none other than Mark Furman, the LAPD detective from the OJ case.
Really?
He got fired for being a Nazi.
Right.
During the OJ case. And strangely enough, I've caught him on numerous times providing commentary on this Idaho 4 case.
Exactly what I was going to say.
You know what I mean?
That was
there was one of them, I think,
surreal.
I think it was News Nation.
Yep.
Go ahead.
With Ashley Banfield, I think.
One of the instances was it Ashley Banfield? Okay, yeah, I think it was Mark Furman, yeah, Ashley Banfield, and the opposite was I believe Marsha Clark. So you have these two, characters from the OJ situation. One of which is he got, like, a lot of folks don't realize Furman got fired because they did an internal affairs investigation. They concluded the day after he testified in the OJ case, a 40-page report of how he was a fucking ardent Nazi. So he got fired for legitimate purposes. I don't know why no one discusses that anymore. Like, he never has to answer questions about that. And then Marsha Clark, she was married to an OT7 Scientologist. She herself was a Scientologist, at least at the time. So we got Scientologists and Nazis providing commentary on the Idaho 4. I find it to be an odd situation, especially since Furman is connected to Idaho and has long been connected to Idaho.
Yeah, when people say that they hate outsiders, it's not that they're like they hate the kids that come to school and the whatever. They're probably not happy about whatever riffraff went from. But they're talking about wealthy families with long money that buy up swaths of land and just clear cut the shit out of it. And that, I think, that's something that's misunderstood, and it's in droves. And from what I understand, Coeur d'Alene is pretty wild. Since you brought it up,
Super wild. Here's a wild fun fact from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, relative to other parapolitical activity here, our current era of shenanigans. P. Diddy made an emergency stop for flight to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, the days preceding his arrest. What the fuck is P. Diddy doing in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho? P. Diddy sits today in a jail cell along with Sam Bankman-Fried, the former, now imprisoned founder of the cryptocurrency exchange and money laundering operation, FTX, that bought a small bank in rural Washington State, Farmington State Bank, approximately 45 miles north of both campuses of Washington State University and University of Idaho. Bought that bank out, changed the name to Moonstone Bank, and started doing a lot of nefarious shit because 1 month or 6 weeks after the murders, the Department of Justice seized $60 million for money laundering from that bank. I went through the FDIC reports going back a decade or so on that bank. Any buffoon could determine they were money laundering in that bank because once Bankman-Fried took it over and bought it out, they had like 100 or 1,000% increase in deposits in like 1 month. It was fucking ridiculous.
So this is a small town bank that was owned by FTX, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, so the FTX financed it, and they financed it with a guy that was involved in connected to the BCCI scandals in the Bahamas, and a French guy. That every French name sounds like Fraggle Rock to me. I can't remember his name, but he's strangely enough, he's the creator. He's the creator of the cartoon Inspector Gadget. So, him and Bankman-Fried were in partnership to buy out that bank. That dude is not charged with anything today. That's hard to believe, but again, he's been a long time spook and money laundering guy for somebody out of the Bahamas.
So there's a lot of agents or former agents right there under our nose, doing stuff, moving money, and
oh yeah,
it's never enough. The money that they have, and so when you were saying, getting back to that original thought, where it's a domino effect, and if you're in the know, you understood.
Sure.
Where does that start? Where does that end?
So that's a great question. Yeah. So there was definitely some arbitrage going on with these cryptocurrency exchanges. Binance, this Chinese firm, owned, and it's not just Binance and FTX. There's also this Hex coin that Steve Gonzalez was marketing in the months after his daughter's murder on numerous network television interviews wearing a Hex hat. That founder would also be charged 6 months after the fact for the same activities as Bankman-Fried and this Binance situation. So they're all just doing these crazy Ponzi schemes, these cryptocurrency exchanges. Binance owned a significant portion of the FTX coin, which is essentially their stock. It's an unregulated security, basically, at that rate. Because once they sold all that coin, they it's much like the Hawk. If you're familiar with the Hawk to a meme coin disaster,
yeah.
Okay, it's the same thing, but on a much larger scale, right? So Binance tanks the FTX coin by selling all their coin, and they owned like 30% of the overall coin or some nonsense.
And then they backed out of the deal, right? They made a deal for it, and that's what crashed it, right?
Right. So it seemed very intentional, yeah. Because they like you said, they backed out.
It was like a hostile takeover without the takeover, is the way I see it. And so how would it relate to a cover-up? What, in your opinion, as far as the timing, it seems like.
Sure. No, great question. Great question, Kane. So whatever went on there was intentional. So whatever set this first domino off wasn't an incidental action. It was intentional, right, with this Binance situation. So that causes FTX to suddenly have to file bankruptcy protection, right? As a result of that situation, they weren't expecting to do it. This was like they even labeled it as emergency bankruptcy protection. So that was filed on November 11th. November 11th, I think it was. Yeah, November 11th. So the murders were November 13th, 2022. Damn, it's the time this whole case has gone by so much. It's November 2022 seems like so long ago.
At the same time, it seems like yesterday.
Well, it's because it's not resolved. That's for sure. Yeah. So they filed bankruptcy, emergency bankruptcy, less than 48 hours before the murders. So they file it in Delaware where they're incorporated. But in that bankruptcy filing, they have to divulge that they bought out this fucking bank in Farmington, Washington, right? No one knew that publicly. No one in the state of I even went through the records of the state of Washington. There was no public information that FTX or any of this stuff was associated with that bank because they bought it through they set up intermediary like shell corporations to make the purchase and whatnot, but they were the owners of it, right? So no one knew that until it was filed. They filed bankruptcy. So the emergency bankruptcy, I think, triggered a lot of people with the butthole pucker effect of saying, we got to fucking do something here. And as a result of that, any loose ends that were present on the battlefield at that time were cut off, in my opinion. If you want to look at it in a combat scenario, some of those loose ends may have included these young women who were part of a drug trafficking network amongst the Greek organizations, fraternities, the sororities that pre-existed their time at those universities. That they essentially inherited within being membership there, right?
Hold on, one second. I'm sorry. Hey, Brian, can you take care of that for me? I'm right in the middle of the show. Thank you, bro. Sorry about that. Okay.
No worries.
Sorry.
So I think this is one of the most important factors when considering like loose ends that were present at the time of this sudden divulging of this money laundering operation that existed just north of the campuses owned by FTX. So these girls had quit their sororities, right?
Right.
So if what I'm saying is correct, and there's a lot of evidence supporting the drug trafficking amongst these fraternities and sororities. I mean, a lot of evidence. They got a real problem there. Not just hearsay and rumors which exist around the home. Obviously, there's been students that have, I'm sure you're familiar with it, have done interviews claiming that they're familiar with the drug environment at that home, et cetera. I don't discount those claims. I'm just saying that there's actual convictions and evidence and whatnot of these organizations on both campuses, the fraternities, the sororities, being involved in a lengthy history of large-scale drug trafficking.
And human trafficking, I'm assuming, at this point, has gotten mixed up in that.
Oh, I think so. I think some of these girls may have, in fact, been human trafficked as well as part of being these sororities.
Yeah, it's a scary thought with all the stuff that keeps coming up in the news, as with all the networks that they're discovering, like they found in Houston with the bar with the tunnels in the back, and just such a network that we never even imagined. And here we've had 6 to 18-year-old girls disappearing for decades, one after the other. Just a long list of milk cartons. And and then you have these same factions, I guess you'd say, on college campuses, and they get their pick of the litter, so to speak.
Cream of the crop. Right?
I mean, when you've got the coin,
you want some young, attractive females, go no further than the sorority, right?
Or they don't make it out, if whatever they find out. So, you
make two great points there, Kane. If I could just give you a couple thoughts here real quick on something we just said. Yeah, the first milk carton kid, Eton Pats, by all evidence, it seems that he was kidnapped and ritually sacrificed by the Process Church of the Final Judgment. So that milk carton kids goes back to the process. And as far as the prostitution of young college girls through sororities and whatnot, one of the first things I did was look back in Thanksgiving, November 2022. So I have a lot of friends throughout across America from my years in the military and whatnot, and traveling.
Thanks for your service, by the way.
Oh, for sure, man. My pleasure. Traveling a lot, whatnot, and meeting a lot of folks throughout the years. And I had a friend up there in the criminal justice system within Idaho who I wasn't, I saw it on the news when it first happened, but I didn't really pay any attention to it, and I was involved in some other stuff at the time. But she calls me around Thanksgiving, and she's like, "Hey, give me all these details." She's like, "None of this seems right to me." I'm like, "None of that sounds right to me." So I started looking into it more. So one of the first things I did was when I started looking at the victims, I went to their social media, and a number of them still had social media accounts still up. They were later taken down, and stuff cleaned from that and whatnot, including some of the surviving roommates.
Yeah, the fraternities actually scrubbed 2 years back. Sigma Chi did.
Did they really?
Which, within 2 weeks of the crime, which is a little extreme.
I did not realize that, because they're real shady. They seem like a real shady bunch over there.
Across the world, Canada. I mean, the stuff they make them do for initiation is beyond disgusting. and use your imagination on that and
butt chugging,
guy to guy stuff. I mean, if you could imagine it, they've been caught at it, yet they still remain on campuses, which just.
I think that speaks to the power that I'm kind of inferring at. I think that's what you're describing as a great example of this power structure that exists, not publicly known because these are secret societies, right? There's initiations and compartmentalized information within there. Then they have college students that are operating huge sums of money in these treasury accounts for these individual chapters. But then you have adults that are sitting on these boards that are running these college students. So it's a whole fucking network. It's not really publicly known, but it does wield an innumerable amount of power. There we go. But here's the other thing that when you say human trafficking, I think that is a factor in this situation because some of the victims, I looked at their social media profiles. They're traveling during the school year. I just look at it logistically speaking, from a financial perspective. How are these individuals operating in life? They're traveling, so they're going to a school. They're dressing well. They look nice. They got their hair done. They got the makeup stuff. They got cars. They're going out drinking. They got money, right? They got money.
Yeah,
then they're traveling. Yeah. They're not living. Yeah, I mean, I didn't go to college. I went to join the Air Force at 17, but I was broke. Trying to working in the Air Force, trying to drink all the time. Man, they're going to college. I don't know how you afford that stuff. So then they're traveling to other cities. These girls are, right, during the school year. Miami, Seattle, Honolulu, San Diego, Las Vegas. Lots of places. Some of those photos, there was a comment by one of the boyfriends saying, "I wish I could travel with you." So it seems like she's traveling without this guy on numerous trips. It sounds like. Because she's got numerous trips she's going on, and it seems like he's not in any of the photos, and he's commenting that he wished he could travel with her. So who's financing these trips? Why are these young women traveling to these, towns during the school year, right? The only thing that makes sense to me is they're being pimped out, and there's lots of examples of these things. In fact, there's an infamous example of people who clearly knew these girls were getting pimped out on a campus, and no one did anything about it for a couple of years. There's a college in the Hudson River Valley of New York, Sarah Lawrence. It's an all-female college. It's a very bougie institution. A lot of wealth there. This dude, his daughter was going there. She lived in a dorm. It's an all-female dorm. It's an all-female college. He lived in the dorm. You're not going to tell me you're not going to see some greasy old dude running in and out of this dorm every day for a couple of years. He's pimping out not only his daughter, but the women in that dorm, her friends and stuff. And he's running the operation out of the campus dorm on an all-female campus. There's no way that everyone in the administration did not know this dude was there. It's not that big of a campus. You know what I mean? So these things go on. And I think they went on with this Idaho 4 situation. I think that could be a major factor because it speaks to the other people that have financial, gains or losses involved here, right?
Well, watch what you say there, JJ, because you're going against the mainstream narrative that the girls were pretty and perfect. And if we can find fault in that message, then maybe we're onto something. I think more focus in the beginning from a lot of creators was the OnlyFans angle and Emma Bailey and the friends that Kaylee and Maddie rubbed elbows with.
Sure.
And
I think all those are factors. But here's the thing. Oh, go ahead.
No, go on.
No, when I say they're factors, are they major factors or minimal factors? I would say probably minimal factors. Because here's the deal. And this is my problem with saying just white nationalists, or Mexican cartels were involved. These are all, elements of the same soup. But none of these organizations or these factors have any bearing on the media spin, the public conviction of Kohberger, the law enforcement's blatant disregard for standard procedure and protocol. And that's not even inferring any planting of evidence. I'm just saying the rest of their bullshit, you know what I mean? And their claims in the investigation against The only thing that can really wield that kind of power is, a we're talking wealth, and we're talking again. So if they have a drug trafficking operation on these campuses, which they clearly do, and they got to launder that money somewhere, and it goes into that's what I'm saying. These are all factors, but you have to look. I think I look mostly at the power. Like, how can all of this get perpetrated? How can you convict this dude with these bullshit charges and do it and convict him in the court of public opinion and kind of just slide everything away? These are all very powerful things. And the only thing that makes sense to me is there's just this odd connection between the money laundering aspect with the FTX situation, because you would need that level of FTX power to make this whole situation kind of get swept away. So I think when I say these other things are factors, I think they are. They all kind of, these things didn't happen in a vacuum. These kids were involved in a lot of weird shit. You know what I mean? In my opinion. Not to diminish the deceased and their characters.
Right. Rest in peace and justice for Maddie, Kaylee, Ethan, and Xana. But when you talk about the boards, I love that topic because that is the crest of power. They sit on each other's boards once a year, twice a year, make huge decisions for cities or universities or corporations, and get paid millions of dollars by each other for just rubbing each other's back. And when you look at President Green, you wonder how he can put a suit on and walk in front of the cameras every day with a straight face. Yeah, I mean, you just know that I don't know if you caught the latest Hadron Collider video where he's going to be part of the CERN 2, basically there in Idaho, and he had this peeled, pulled back face. It was like somebody was grabbing his ponytail, and he's just got a. He literally looked. If he smiled, something would tear.
Right.
And
right.
it goes to show you his, I guess, manner of living. They never want to die. They always want to be young, forever young, and have all this money. And one thing that keeps them young is these young women. And
you bring up an interesting point with this guy, because I think there has been some focus on him, not enough necessarily on the right focus. Because he wields. So when I'm talking about all of this, the power behind FTX and all these other things, like, this dude was an international businessman, right? He wasn't an attorney. He ran the largest corporate law firm in the world, but he's not an attorney. He's a business dude. So, like, he's deeply intertwined within banking and industry, right? So he would be the guy, in my opinion, that would be managing the kind of that power on the scene down there. As far as, I think, at some point in time, again, these things work in factions, and people are always trying to take over more power. At some point in time, this whatever weird parapolitical power that exists, that was employing FTX and money laundering it through it, because all that money that went to Ukraine, that was laundered through FTX. Mm-hmm. A lot of that, tens of millions.
Really?
Laundered hundreds. Oh, yeah. Laundered through FTX.
That's what you guys were saying. I see.
Yeah, so FTX is all over the map with doing money laundering, right? Politics, or, international stuff. So whatever power's behind that, they need a guy like they got like Green to manage, the environment, if you will, the local environment.
Well, he wrote the book
around the same time, right? You can't.
Oh, you froze up on me. Hold on. Let me see. Sorry, JJ. Okay, well, we'll get JJ back here. Hold on. There he is. Can you hear me? Yep, we just froze up for a sec. Sorry about that. Can you hear me okay? JJ?
Yep.
Okay, there you are. Okay, yeah, you froze up for a sec. Sorry about that. Go on with what you're saying.
Well, no, I just think, you got Green and FTX coming in the same area at the same time. I don't think these things should be ignored. What are your thoughts, though, on the guy? What are your thoughts on Green? Because he's an interesting character, and obviously the murder home was once owned by his folks. So, he's got some tangential connections otherwise too.
Well, I think when you say that FTX didn't exist in a vacuum, that's more than a mouthful, because obviously that company is a newer thing. That was like, what, 2018 or whatever, 17? What
Yeah, 17, I
existed
think,
before that, where the big money really came from? Was just kind of like uh, vampires feasting on the latest kill? Or was it a conglomerate, in your opinion, of already existing companies just taking advantage of another weak, like, say, sheep in the chain? Does that make sense?
No, it's a good question. No, it makes sense. That's a good question. I've considered that. Like, because FTX, because I think FTX came in there and took some existing business, right? So, but I look at it as more as a digital wrap up of operations. So you have these cartel operations. Largely, I'm assuming the cartels were, or maybe even the fraternities and sororities were managing this money, right? Because they have these huge accounts, right? They're dealing with millions of dollars in these fraternities and sororities already. So they could be shifting the money through their accounts. They could have some cartel stuff going on. Whatever was going on, there was other money laundering operations that went on. But it seems like, and I'm not saying that even just the drug trafficking on college campuses are exclusively, going through just that one bank. I'm saying like they might do some other stuff in the area too there, right? But it seems like FTX came in there with a concerted effort and purpose to wrap up some digital money laundering, right? Because what they did was they did a really unique thing. So banks can't own crypto, and crypto can't own banks. Is ruled by the SEC and the feds and whatnot.
Oh, really?
The banking regulators. So what FTX did was they hired the attorney from the banking regulation of the state, the guy who ran the banking regulation for the state of Washington. They paid him off to change the law, and then they hired him as the president of their new money laundering bank, their Moonstone Bank.
That's a smart move. Yeah. Okay, so that fits right into the narrative what we have with Hitler, with Fry, with the legislature, the local legislature, the state legislature of Latah County, and what they do. And I'm sure you're well aware, just like the Scientologists, when they do a transaction, the treasurer, the bond, the realtor, the mortgage broker are all a part of that same organization. So it never goes outside the circle of trust, which keeps the mouth silent. Now, you kind of lit a little bulb in my head when you talked about how the fraternities do handle millions of dollars, and what you have is a rule in most fraternities and sororities, and we've shown it, that whether there's the written rule says if there is a death, call 911. But the unwritten rule, the unspoken rule, is do not call the police, call your chapter 1-800 number, and let the lawyers handle it.
Yep.
And so when you think about Dylan calling Hunter, there's your first clue.
Yep.
Why are you calling the fraternity over the police? Now, I also have a theory, and I won't go too much into it, that there's no way that college students gathering around this house, let's say at 9 a.m. in the morning, with the millennial device love that they have, didn't contact a parent or, let's say, one of the campus police officers through a text or knocking on the door or maybe a little nudge. And they went there, and when they say... Go on.
No, that's a great point. I just want to interject real quick. That's a great point when you say the millennials and their devices. Show me one photo of kids congregate in front of that house, and I'll start believing that story.
Well, conveniently, right after the last hearing, during Hushley's little embarrassing acting moment, they released the photo or video of the garbage bag kids right in front of the dumpster. Have you seen that one yet?
I did. Yeah, I saw a couple. There was a couple of photos that released right along the street there, right?
Right, and it just fit in with the let's keep the propaganda going here. Let's give them a little something to chew on. Let's distract them this way and turn zigzag. And
no, for sure.
So yeah, that's what are the chances that none of those kids, texted anybody or FaceTimed or Twitched or somebody, and they all kept their mouths shut for that whole 3 hours standing there, and then they called the police. Let's send in one of the frat guys to walk through and contaminate the house first, you know.
So yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. It sounds like complete bullshit. That's why I'm actually willing to believe it is bullshit, given the volume of stuff that the law enforcement authorities have just created wholesale in this case. I'm willing to believe that the story that we've been sold as a public did not even go down like that, right?
Right. And it feels like they're running out of scripts. Like with the Luigi Mangione thing, you had all these similarities, and you're just like, if you're vested. My point, though, I keep making is there's 350 million, say, Americans, right? And 349 million of them either don't give a crap or don't watch the news, and they'll buy up he was a stalker, he was a grad student, he was obsessed with serial killers, and that seems to be.
You followed them on social media, you know, all these false claims.
Oh, wasn't he behind the house 12 times? And
there you go. Yeah, connected their Wi-Fi.
And even though they've disproven it, you have News Nation and Nancy Grace out there repeating it with just a little bit of a. My friend Miss Potts says they keep moving the goalposts for any of the evidence that gets disproven. And the reason we didn't test the blood on the handrail is because there was a party the night before, or it's like I think George made the point that there should have been way more DNA that was extrapolated from that house.
Way more.
And
they should have been no shortage, right? It should have been a fucking catastrophe of DNA in that house.
And they also didn't submit any fingerprints. You're telling me, I don't care if you had 5 hours to clean something up. You do not have a house void of fingerprints.
Sure. No, it's bullshit. It's bullshit.
So,
I mean, in the evidence they did allegedly produce, that law enforcement authorities allegedly produced, forensically speaking, it speaks to a cleanup, but they don't recognize it being a cleanup. You mean to tell me you had to throw down powder and a chemical to establish this footprint of this Vans shoe that just suddenly went out by the wayside? No one gives a fuck about that shoe anymore. You know, you have that. You know, you apologize. I'm getting in some F-bombs. This whole case.
No, you're good, bro. You can say anything you want, man. You're good here.
I get fired up when I talk about this. The amount of constitutional rights violations of Kohberger, but the victims, victims' families being served nothing but this isn't justice, and whatever they want to call it, it ain't justice. And whatever the fuck else goes on in that town, because this is probably only a bit of whatever weird shit that goes on in that town. But yeah. Just the whole breadth of it, the propaganda. I mean, the propaganda. I'm probably getting kind of sidetracked, but back to just replaying your propaganda statements in my head here. Why else would we have all this propaganda? What is it for? You know what I mean? What is it hiding? Right? I mean, I know money laundering claims for a lot of people. I've discussed. Some folks, it's a stretch for them, right? Because they hear these new, especially the folks who hear the news bites of he did it and he did it and he did it again. The Dateline NBC's he did it. It's the 48 hours he did it. So, it's a lot of folks to understand, a jump for them to understand money laundering and drug trafficking and human trafficking and whatnot. But nonetheless, why else would you need all this propaganda? What is the purpose of it if it's not for some larger parapolitical cover-up?
It is without a doubt a machine, and you can see it with the screening of that trafficking movie with the guy Jim Caviezel. I'm sorry, I forgot the name of it. It's just like cogs spinning. Put the trash can, turn the lights out. Keep people from seeing this movie. And here you have a judicial system, and now I'll tell you, JJ, before this case, I followed all the stuff in the news, Columbine and FBI in Waco, and I've seen and heard it all. but I wasn't as aware, even though I've been arrested for stuff and I've seen how the system works, how low down and dirty and just about getting that W on whoever you brought in, offering them a plea deal, and, to hell with whether we ruin your life or not.
Right. And I expect those activities. That is the nature of what our nation's justice system has become. However, I can't wrap my mind around this machine. You have the political aspects locally connecting through whatever means to the media aspects, and again, the non-investigation. There was no investigation in this case. It's the appearance of an investigation. It's a magic trick, often perpetrated. Look at the heart of who perpetrated each component of this magic trick. It is the FBI. So why the fuck is the FBI so deeply involved in this case? That they shouldn't be. On paper, they're not lawfully able to be. And so why are they the focal point on every key piece of evidence in this case? Again, back to this Vance shoe print. They made that a purpose of search for his Koberger's apartment and a search, the affidavit for search warrant in Washington, over there in Pullman, Whitman County. Where did it go? That's gone now. And again, in their official narrative, they don't recognize the house was cleaned, yet they're going through a process in which to get this shoe print, which they know on whoever's doing this forensic analysis and, lifting the print. They know that they're doing that because the scene's clean, but nowhere in the narrative does it say it's clean. So even their fucking reports are schizo. It's a non-investigation all around.
Yes, kids go to bed, but I always say that they handed over Ann Taylor 56 terabytes of dick pics, because if you watch the investigation, I mean, it looks like trainees going through the motions at best. Let's take 500 pictures of this tire mark from 6 months ago. But here's the most important thing I wanted to get to you with. And it's as far as with everything that we've said, it seems to me at this point, from everything I've seen, that the minute they walked into that house, whether you think it was at 9 a.m. or 4 a.m. or noon on the 13th, they knew why.
Oh, yeah. No, there's no questions. Yeah, there's no questions. Zero questions.
Why?
In my opinion, that's why you see that patrol out there, right? That patrol, the infamous shot of the patrol busting the kids for underage drinking on the band field, the area of the field across the street.
Okay.
I think the reason why that patrol was sitting there, because they were guarding the perimeter. They were doing perimeter security for a hit. That's my take on it.
And that's the Hyundai that drove by that didn't stop. Brian the Ninja parachuted out of it while it was rolling and did this thing in 8 minutes now, or 11 minutes, whatever it's down to.
I think they drove that same unmarked police car around the town that night, and they're selling that car on video as being Koberger's vehicle.
And I think it appears in the Grub Truck video. People have pointed out that there's a similar one there. Of course, there's a lot of Hyundai Elantras. But here's the thing. You have an FBI expert. You're only as good as your last Diet Coke, right? If you're going to submit your expert opinion on a car identification, that's your reputation on the line. So if you do that and then all of a sudden, a week later, somebody changes the story for you, how is that expert testimony anymore? Because that's a final conclusion by an agent. That's his job. That's his specialty job. What are you doing? I also
and it seems on his face, and it's very. I mean, the guy's a tard ball. There's no question about it on his face. I mean, you know what I mean. But like, and I think, I'm real judgmental of the FBI for good reasons. To say that, yeah, they fuck up everything on purpose. But here's the deal. I would actually argue that's part of the magic trick, right? They knew. I would argue Koberger was pre-selected as the fucking fall guy before this entire operation unfolded, right? in whatever scrambling effort that may have been. And he was obviously known to the law enforcement in the area, right? I mean, whether or not he got that internship over there in Pullman PD, I don't think it's ever been conclusively stated at this point.
Well, that's police business, so we're never probably going to be privy to that information. Well, here's the big question, JJ. Why Kohberger?
Well, that's what I'm getting at. So I think it was given the hastily effort of unfolding in this whole circumstances, at least as I've kind of tried to lay out with these financial crimes that were tangentially associated to drug trafficking and loose ends that existed with these sorority girls who would quit their sorority. Madison Mogen and Xana Kernodle, not heavily reported, but initially the media went to their local chapter there, and they got quotes saying those girls quit at the beginning of the school year.
You don't do that. You don't quit a sorority amicably. And I believe that one of the sororities was under suspension at the time. I believe Maddie's.
Yep.
And
it was all four of them, right? So, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, Bethany Funk, and Dylan Mortensen were all part of the same sorority.
Well, they were in different sororities. Xana, I forget all the names, the Greek stuff.
No, they were in Pi
Beta Phi.
Pi Beta Phi, and then Kaylee Gonzalez was in Sigma Alpha Sigma.
I think that's it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And
so Xana's older sister, I believe, was a member of Alpha Sigma on the Pullman over there in Washington State at the same time. And
that's Jasmine.
That chapter, yes, and that I believe is that chapter over there has a cocaine trafficking problem in the past.
Surprise.
Now, but the important thing to notice, though, or to recognize with these chapters, and the two different campuses, they function as one. The towns function as one, despite being in different states.
From what I understand.
Well, you have joint 911 operations. You have joint SWAT operations.
They're deputized.
The campuses have agreements. For example, University of Idaho doesn't have an ROTC program. All of their ROTC students go to Washington State, and a lot of the other shared activities like that.
So, when you say tying up loose ends, as far as the STX crashes on Friday, right? Of that week.
Was it a Friday?
It would be the 13th, 12th, 11th. You said the 11th, right?
Yeah. Well, let's double check that date. It's been a while since I've looked at it. It was FTX. Yeah. So I see what you're saying about the loose ends. So I went back to Kohberger real quick while I'm looking this up.
Okay.
So if they're hastily perpetrate a hit like this and have a fall guy, well then, they could have it could have been so simple as over there in the Pullman PD that they went down and looked down the hall. They're like, let's put it on the intern. He's got a wide Elantra.
Because
that simple.
That is a really good. I wonder who he pissed off.
Yeah, because they're operating so hastily, right? So yeah, it was November 11th. So that was that a Wednesday? That was a Wednesday, right?
The 11th was okay. So Sunday was the 13th, Saturday the 12th, Friday the 11th.
Yeah, you're right. It was Friday. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Friday.
So there, ABC 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, so they didn't have a lot of time to work with here. And again, why was Kaylee Gonzalez invited back to campus that weekend? It wasn't with her sorority sisters. What was the relationship with her and her sorority at that point?
Well, she wasn't in it. Why would she go back? There was,
and why would she not? She's allegedly Dylan Mortensen's +1 to a party that Friday night, and that's the reason why she came back there.
Lured. It sounds like a luring, and I've always felt that way. And there are now this is speculation, but that she was wary to go back. I don't know if there's actual evidence of that, but something had her cautious about returning to the campus. But she did have to still take exams. So that's a very confusing thing within itself. Because if you're traveling during the semester and being Vogue and going to every party, how are you passing your senior courses?
It's a great question. But I do think she was lured. And again, these are factors that should not be ignored in understanding the criminal, the victim situation. What?
Oh, he froze up again. Give it 1 second, guys. Let him refresh. You got me? There you are. You got it? You back? Can you hear me? JJ.
No, I'm back.
There you go. Okay,
cool.
cool.
I guess, huh?
All right.
No, so I was saying, I call it Operation GCD because I like to say it's a shenanigan-infused journey into the mind of this particular garbage.
Oop. We lost him. Hold on. They got storms up there in Ohio. I know that. Hey, man. What's up, bro?
Did I cut out again?
Yeah. You guys are having storms up there, right? Are you getting on your end?
I got some heavy storms, and the snow drift is coming over on my covering up my Starlink. My Starlink gremlins are acting up.
Oh, right. You got the Starlink.
So the greatest common denominator here, the GCD of looking at these victims, the 2 surviving females in the house were still members of their sorority. The 3 deceased females had all departed their sororities.
Yes.
These things cannot be discarded with understanding the victimology.
And I don't know. I don't know these people, but from the image that Dylan has portrayed, she seems like there's a dark side there.
Sure.
And
is it the hood rat boyfriend that
between that and holding the machetes and the knives and all the we're all convinced that if me and AR Hayes, oh, we lost him. Are you back?
Yep, I'm back.
Okay.
I'm back. Yep.
Yep, you must be getting heavy up there. We got a little rain, a light drizzle, and it's about 60 degrees here, so it's been pretty rough of a winter for us down here.
That sounds pretty nice.
People love Tampa Bay. It's a nice place. It's tough in August, so a lot of people will come in January and be like, "Oh, what a beautiful, wonderful world!" And then the air is so thick in the middle of August that you can cut it with a knife, and they're like, "I'm out of here. I hate this place."
Right. No, I'm hip. I was stationed in MacDill at one point in time.
So you were at MacDill. Okay. Yeah, your Air Force. Right.
Yeah. I'm familiar with the Clearwater area there, too. You live in an interesting environment with all those Scientologists around.
Well, growing up, you never really... When I was in 6th grade, I remember they mailed out these pamphlets about what it meant to be a Scientologist and aliens, and everybody just kind of rolled their eyes. But my best friend's mom was a city commissioner at the time, Karen Martin.
Okay.
And she started a campaign called Stamp Out Scientology because she knew. She had followed them since being on the boat in England, and she knew with all the pyramid schemes going on at that time that it was a corrupt religion.
Sure.
And it's weird because it exists, and I tell you, there are half the police department, which one of them now is the city manager, just got promoted from chief of police, and Sergeant Slaughter, and he is, I call him Sergeant Slaughter.
Nice.
He's probably a major or whatever. Nice. And I've had interaction with him because the Fraternal Order of Police was directly across the street from my recording studio, and they would have the gathering of the ivory towers, every other month on a Tuesday. And I was out there 1 in the morning drilling on putting wood up, and he came over here. Yeah, what's all this racket? Like I was a 3-year-old kid. I'm like, first of all, this is county. It's not even your jurisdiction. But I'm hanging upside down. I'm like, sir, please be careful. This board might drop on your head. And he went, and just ran away. He didn't want his image to get targeted. But they have paid him for many years off duty as private security for the Flag Center there downtown, where, if you're familiar, the Calvary Baptist Church, when you were stationed here, if you visited, you probably remember it, going out to Clearwater Beach, you had that big cathedral. Well, they tore that down now and made it just this faceless, empty, nameless building.
And that's one of the weirdest things about Clearwater, from my recollections going there, is it's like a ghost town. Like Scientology bought up all these businesses, or buildings. They don't really put businesses in them and whatnot down there.
Oh, it's across the country. They've built these tremendous cathedrals, and they're all state of the art. Huge buildings, and they're completely empty. And that's why I say when the enrollment's down, they're not bringing in any new members. Their money is just making money at this point now. And they do bring in people through the Hollywood thing. You know, people fall for it because John Travolta and whatever. But you know,
John Travolta, yeah, he's got him and Tom Cruise with the face still these days. It's not, they don't really have a new face. They don't have an up and coming face though either. They got a problem with that.
Yeah, they got the aging thing. We all feel like it's kind of falling apart. But you never know.
Danny Masterson, he didn't do him any favors in the Hollywood angle, right? He's in jail for a while, right?
They couldn't get him out of that situation. There's been a lot of things. That Lisa lady that got murdered, and it was all covered up.
Sure.
Anyway, going back to the cops, when you talk about, it starts like, oh, okay, I'll just take this little part-time side job in my off hours, getting $25 an hour in 1984, and then 20 years later, you're dependent on that money. And now they have a control over you. And they've been trying forever, just like with the Christ Church in Moscow, to get an elected official onto any kind of government seat. And I was very surprised that they didn't try to oppose Bill Thompson in the unopposed race for not DA, but that's another good point you guys made. I wanted to bring that up. I'm going to let you go here. I don't want to keep you all night. Jenn has some big bombshell she's texting me about. So I'll wrap it up with you here in a minute. But and thank you so much for being on. I would love to have you on.
I appreciate it.
Again, and please post a link, guys, in the chat for the OCD Operation GCD OCD. I always want to call you OCD. Sorry, a podcast, and the Devil's Rejects over there at the Occult Rejects. They have, and make sure you check them out. I always put up a post when I catch you guys on, and more and more people have been coming to watch you guys, and we really enjoy it. But you were talking about, it's not Bill Thompson that is prosecuting in this case. He's more or less just like a puppet, because you have the DA, is that you were saying, that's really pushing this.
Correct. Yeah, that's correct, sir. Yeah, you got two deputy attorney generals that are sitting there. They're the ones calling all the shots. In fact, he's even looked to them at times. They're the ones who made all the decisions down in Ida County in that first hearing down there, or Ada County, because he didn't even show up. You know, he's clearly not running the show there.
He wasn't even there, and it wasn't even discussed. I thought we were like, oh, is he going to call in on Zoom, or it didn't matter. And so you think they're the ones sticking to the guns on Kohberger and keeping him locked up against all common sense.
Yep, it's definitely coming from the top down. It's top down. It has nothing to do with the county.
Yeah, I think
that's why when they change venues, I mean, I wasn't. To me, it's indifferent. You know what I mean?
It doesn't matter, because it's the same circle of trust or triangle I feel Hitler is just as involved, and he's just as unable to wrap his brain around anything else as the goofy JJJ was. You know, oh, I don't get it.
Right,
It's
right.
like in that Tom Hanks movie, Big. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Right.
You know, and
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, you do.
He very conveniently didn't understand, right?
He has selective understanding. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Well,
All right.
Kane, I appreciate the invite. Appreciate the time. It's great conversation. I'd be happy to join you anytime. In fact, I'd like to extend you an invite to come join myself and Nick at the Occult Rejects on our Friday show sometime.
That would be awesome. Yeah. I do work earlier. I go to work at 4 in the morning.
Let me give you this departing.
I know you guys go late.
Oh shit. Okay.
But I'll definitely jump on. That's
we usually do
thank
about
you. That'd be
9
an
to 11,
honor.
so yeah.
But go on. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'll send you the link and an invite and everything.
I appreciate it.
If I can give you a closing statement though in regards to your analysis on the Clearwater situation, the political environment, the police and whatnot, who's really calling the shots for the police, that kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Idaho. Look at Moscow. Right. You have the Christchurch people, which again, I don't approve of they're into some strange stuff. I don't know if they're involved too much politically speaking or connected to these murder situations or drug trafficking even for that matter. They may be. There's just not a lot of evidence, I don't think, supporting anything like that. But you have Christchurch, who owns a large significant portions of real estate. They're a nonprofit. You have the university, who owns most of the rest of the real estate in town. They're also a nonprofit. Who the fuck's paying taxes in that town? I can tell you who's funding the law enforcement department, and that's the university.
Wow. Who the fuck? Well, you got an ice cream shop on Main Street that collects nickels on Tuesdays.
Right.
That is wow. That really put the whole thing together. Thank you, JJ.
Yeah.
All right.
Sure. Well, Kane, I appreciate the invite.
All right. Hey, thanks for being on. Here's Jenn now, guys. And let's play him out. Please put that link in for JJ. And I appreciate it. I'll see you soon, man. Cool. All right. Let me shut this page down so I can finally... All right. There it is. Jenn.
Hey. I got something to say about the Christchurch connection thing.
Hold on 1 second. Let me get my mic attenuated back up here to normal speed here. That was awesome, everybody. I haven't even had the chat up. I don't know who's in the chat right now or what's going on, but I appreciate everybody being here. If you're new to the Purge, please hit that subscribe. Please go to the Operation OCD podcast and subscribe to them. And make sure you check out their shows and check out some of their back stuff, because some of the stuff we were talking about tonight, we didn't even touch on half of it. So believe me, you'll feel like you learned a lot watching JJ Vance and Nick there and also Lisa is very, very, very intelligent, and a couple of the other guests that they've had are pretty amazing. So let me pull you up here, Jenn. And where are you? Oh, I don't want to scare everybody with that. There's Jenn. Okay, so all right, Jenn, you're on live.
I wish he was still on because I had things to chime in, but I'll just chime in case he's listening still. As far as, I think you guys were talking about, I was listening, but I was doing stuff. You guys are talking about the 33s, right? The Masons or something.
Right.
What were you guys? Oh, no, you guys were talking about the Mormons, right?
We did.
Okay, so one connection with the Mormons and Christchurch, not necessarily together, I'm just saying two separate little connections, is for the Mormons, the dates. You know, remember we talked about how the Second Coming of Christ was the Temple Tuttle Comet, the Leonids, which was that weekend. Do you remember?
Yep.
No, probably don't.
I do.
Yeah. So, the Second Coming of Christ, what's his name? The founder of Mormonism, I'm blanking right now. Joseph Smith.
Right.
Had written in his journal, like 18, 20, I don't know, 30 something, early, whatever, a long time ago, that it was the Second Coming of Christ during the meteor storm. It was like the great, when the sky was falling. So that, they're very, remember that Mormon cartoon that we watched?
Mm-hmm.
So they're into like cosmology and that type of shit, Now, the Leonids are from the Temple Tuttle comet, which orbits the sun every 33 years, so 33 connection. I just want to chime that in. And then as far as Christ Church, they are connected in a sense that I can confirm because the New St. Andrews School is the one who released the What Did You Say to Adam video.
The which one?
What Did You Say to Adam?
Oh, right.
New St. Andrews College is owned by Christ Church.
And those two ladies were the ones that released that and something else, right?
They run the Facebook group, whatever cases, Brian Kober or Musk, whatever the hell it's called. I don't remember. They've been on Banfield's show a few times about little different things, but coincidentally, and I'm saying that really sarcastically, that group is not only the one that Papa Roger was posting it, but also the one someone allegedly leaked the What Did You Say to Adam footage to them, right? And someone else leaked the Corner Club still shot. So, like, you telling me really they got that lucky that, like, the three biggest things in this case really came from them? Like, come on. Like, who is this Facebook group? Like, I know they have a lot of, I mean, come on. I think that it's bullshit, and I think all that shit is fake, and I think it was put out to give certain people alibis who were, you know, feeling the heat at the time, which is Jack, hoodie guy, Adam, because boom, in one still shot, it exonerated all three of them in the court of public opinion. You know what I'm saying?
And legally, for God's sake.
Right. Now.
Thank you, Heather.
I've been like, I know, I just uploaded, like, I was doing a video and I was going to add some shit to it, but then I started down a rabbit hole and holy shit. Do you know anything about DNA? Like, the scientific shit?
I know how to leave it.
Be quiet. So, okay. Remember that I put like half a video up right a few minutes ago. And in the video, I posted the PowerPoint that we went through last night. I don't know if you just want to pull it up again, but remember the guy who created that PowerPoint, and I said he's an ex-FBI agent? There's two guys, Steve Bush, I think, and Steve Kramer. They didn't retire. They resigned from the FBI and created a company that basically does the whole genealogy thing, but it's artificial intelligence technology. They basically, this whole shit's all connected. I'm going to sound crazy in a second. Okay, so Othram had a contract with Idaho State Police, right? They had a announcement on their site, which is now gone, but it's in one of the discovery documents.
They had a what?
So,
Jen, hold on, slow down now. I tell you.
I'm talking normal.
No, you're good. You're good. You're just New York fast sometimes. The thing I love about JJ is he gets you thinking, and he definitely gets you talking, doesn't he? Mm-hmm. And he lights a fire, and I don't understand how he doesn't have 1 million followers compared to some of these creators out there. He is just like Heather, just a treasure trove of facts, and it's just all right there, you know. And I enjoyed listening to him. But anyway, go back to you. I'm sorry.
This is big. Like, this is big. Basically, Othram is
Othram Labs?
Othram Labs, right?
Right.
They are heavily tied in with the FBI through, like, shell companies. I think, is that what you call it? Like, you know, one, like, parent company, right? That's what you call it, shell companies?
Yes.
You have this company called, I don't know how you pronounce it, Quiogen? I don't know. Some Chinese word.
Quiznos?
That is like a huge molecular biology company. They own Verigen, which bought JetMatch, right?
Sure.
$150,000 cash. So then, listen, I'm all over the place because I haven't even processed it yet. But listen, JetMatch was hacked, okay, in like June or July of 2017, I don't know, 23, I think, or 22.
This is a DNA company, right?
Listen to me. GEDmatch is what was solved the Golden State Killer. It's basically like what started the genetic genealogy being used by law enforcement.
Solving the cold cases, right?
Right, and that was the two guys that were involved in the Golden State Killer from the FBI were the two guys that started the company that did that PowerPoint that I showed last week. Are you following me?
Okay, with the PowerPoint.
Okay, so these guys solved they were part of the FBI in California. They solved the Golden State Killer. They said, holy shit, this technology, being able to go on this GEDmatch website and just uploading, DNA, we can solve, every crime, right? So
right.
They resigned, started their own company, and are going around training law enforcement to hide the IgG process from the court process. Okay? Following me?
Yes. Okay, let's just refresh everybody's memory on the PowerPoint.
Oh, I don't know if you want to play it. It's in the video I just posted.
Do you want to play that video real quick? I'll be happy to.
Yeah, I uploaded it. Go on my channel.
All right. You got a world premiere from Jenn again. And thank you very much. Here it is. Let's check it out. You want to just play it, or you want to comment?
Once you try a comfort hoodie, you can't go back to regular hoodies. They're slightly weighted, super over.
Why did they wait to go to Pennsylvania? And every other case I've looked into that had IgG that was used, they narrowed down a suspect and then took that suspect's trash or discarded cigarette butt or whatever.
Right. Twice, yeah.
I haven't been able to find another one where they took, parents' DNA, right? And then how did they know, what to take in the trash? It could have been the sisters. I think at least one of the sisters lives there. Could have been the moms. It could have been the dad. You know what I'm saying? Or it could have just been Brian's. So let's assume this separating the trash with gloves on is true, right?
Okay.
Okay, let's assume that's true. What if he knew, what if this whole thing really was set up and they waited to arrest him in Pennsylvania? Pennsylvania is the only state out of Washington, Idaho, and Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is the only one where you collect DNA at time of arrest. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They didn't want to release anything prior to confirming his DNA with a buccal swab because I don't think it ever existed. They couldn't take his DNA in Washington or Idaho because there's already laws in place for genetic genealogy, for third-party consent when collecting, their discarded items, all of that. They don't collect DNA from someone until they get sentenced and convicted, not at arrest. Pennsylvania does it at arrest. Idaho also needs to have DNA if they're accepting someone from extradition. So I feel like it was waiting till he went to Pennsylvania was a way to get his DNA to frame him. Does that make sense?
It was a workaround. Yeah, I've been saying that. Yeah.
So play the video now.
Okay.
I always questioned if the arrest of Brian Kohberger in Pennsylvania was strategic or not. I can't imagine that law enforcement would knowingly let a quadruple murderer roam free to commit another crime, or at the very least, dispose of evidence of the crime. I also thought that the decision to collect DNA evidence from his parents' garbage was an unnecessary step to take, considering Ellie could have enlisted the assistance of WSU police and collected DNA from his office. They also could have just asked him to submit his DNA directly, under some sort of ruse, or followed him and collected his DNA from a discarded item. They had so many other options, but yet they chose to wait and collect his father's DNA to match the sample to the sheath. There had to be a good reason. Considering the current issues being discussed in recent court hearings, I had a hunch that the reason for arresting Brian in Pennsylvania was because of DNA collection statutes. What I found during my research is that both Idaho and Washington have laws that only require collection of DNA samples post-conviction, not at the time of arrest. But when a defendant from another state is transferred to their custody, they require it at the time of extradition. Pennsylvania takes a DNA sample from felony arrestees as part of the initial intake process. I'm not a lawyer, obviously, but I wonder if this is part of the reason he was not arrested until he was in Pennsylvania. This is a post by Tiffany Roy, a forensic DNA expert. She has been very vocal about the need for transparency in the court process in regards to forensic genealogy evidence being withheld from record. She posted a PowerPoint presentation from a company who is owned by 2 ex-FBI agents who are considered to be the founders of the investigative genealogy process. Both men left the FBI and started this company, which streamlines the genetic genealogy technique by using artificial intelligence. This is a presentation for law enforcement that encourages non-disclosure of IGG techniques during the judicial process. Our tax dollars are being used to teach law enforcement to conceal and lie to the public above all costs just to obtain a conviction. There seems to be an intentional effort to conceal this process, and I don't think it's because of privacy of family members. I think this is being concealed because if the public knew how their private genetic information was being used, they would stop using these third-party services. Law enforcement does not want us to realize that this is one step towards a universal DNA database. We are all suspects in a DNA lineup just waiting to be matched to a crime.
That was sealed. One of the reasons, a lot of times there's some people who think that it's a good idea that the prosecution isn't ready. They're behind the 8 ball. I don't believe that. I think with the resources that the government has, you almost always need to take a breath, take a beat, do the investigation, investigate all of the other things. And I will tell you, there are some rumblings around. I don't know if you saw the other day, there was a search warrant that was sealed. One of the reasons they gave for the sealing was very curious. There are all kinds of things that are swirling around this, and as any competent, he clearly has a very competent defense lawyer, would take the time to do the parallel investigation they need to do.
What was this squirrely language around the warrant, Mark?
There was some language in the warrant that if unsealed, not only would it compromise the investigation, but that arguably it would threaten law enforcement. That tells me that there's something there that they don't want out yet, or something that they missed, and they're afraid that if it got out that there would be public, what I call blowback. And I think that that's a legitimate concern. I will tell you, I've seen, I can't tell you how many thousands of warrants that have been sealed. Rarely have I seen one where the reason centered on the threat to law enforcement.
Coffindaffer, are you similarly concerned?
Yes, definitely saw that as sort of a very unusual language to use, and particularly since we have the complaint affidavit unsealed. Why aren't they unsealing those search warrant affidavits? It's not making a lot of sense, and I agree with Counselor Garagos on this one.
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's a suspicion that when they said, we talked about when the police came out and they said, this is the guy, we're 100% certain, there's nobody else that's going to be arrested. I think a lot of that is being called into question now.
Meaning what? There's somebody else, or that it's not?
Meaning potentially that they think there's some other complicity here. There's some other liability here. There's something else going on here that made them necessitate closing or sealing that warrant to the public until March.
This is why the Washington warrant had a supplemental disclosure that asked the court not to consider the DNA test result when issuing probable cause. Law enforcement has been hiding this from the beginning, intentionally and maliciously, in my opinion. All of this is speculation. I am not an expert, and I do not know if I am interpreting the law correctly. But this is how I see it. What do you think? Comment down below.
Are eggs good for dogs?
Raw egg or cooked egg? It doesn't actually matter. Eggs are great for dogs, so add it. Apples or grapes? Grapes are toxic for dogs. They can literally go into kidney failure if they eat grapes, so toss.
Wait, Jen's back. Okay, we're back. So basically, they worked around the law by arresting him in Philly or in Pennsylvania, and then when he's shipped back to Idaho, it's mandatory that you get the buccal swab.
Right.
Am I following correctly?
That's paroling from another state, but they're moving. Like they have those rules, but other than that, it's taken at when they're sentenced. So now, okay, obviously this being able to access just GEDmatch with like I don't know what, like 1.5 million profiles or something like that. They did a study, and I think it was like 80% or something like that of like European ancestry people could be identified from like a third cousin or fourth cousin. So like even if you never did a DNA test, they could still figure you out. It's like a huge privacy concern. Now, the reason I asked if you knew anything about DNA is because everything I can find so far, when they do the statistical match, right, it says like 99.99 whatever. The PCA said 99.98 or something like that. It was an 8 and not a 9. Okay. This is crazy. I don't even really understand it. It's like it's too scientific, but stay with me. So the Human Genome Project, I think it's called, where they sequence like the entire human genome, right? Apparently, I was reading and it says like 99.9% of everyone's DNA is the same. It's like that 0.01 or something that makes us all different, right?
Right.
Like, what if that's why it says the 8? You know what I'm saying? Like, what if the reason they took his father's and not him directly? Because they could have figured out. Okay, for instance, when they stopped him, he said they were going to get Thai food. They could have followed him, went to the Thai restaurant, got his DNA, boom, right there, and did a direct match, right?
Right.
But they go through someone's trash with multiple people living in the home. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. They did it for a reason. I feel like maybe, like, either they sequenced his DNA with this new, like, rapid next generation shit. I don't know. It's, like, too smart for me. I don't understand it fully. But I feel like that point, the 8, is important because it's all about who you're comparing it to. You know what I'm saying?
Say again.
So the significance of putting PCA, I think it says 998 or something. It's like a 0.01 or 001 off of what any other PCA that I can find for other cases. It says 99.99999 matched to paternal lineage. But Brian says has an 8 and not a 9. You get what I'm saying?
So where does that small calculation fit in?
Well, I was looking into like the human genome and genome sequencing, and it says that like 99.99 whatever % of all of our DNA is the same. It's just like the 0.1% or something like that.
Is the big difference.
Right. So like, is this like their, you know what I'm saying? I was reading things about like the Y chromosome and like rural areas, because the mutation like in every generation with the males is not the same as in like a you know, heavily populated. And Brian lived in a rural part of Pennsylvania, right? There could have been another perp, because you can't identify basically to just the father. It could be like two uncles back, you know, like it's harder to narrow it down to just like, this has got to be the son of this person's DNA. It's too much room for error in lineages that are from like rural areas, basically. So much room for mistake.
So that gives.
She's fighting for this DNA stuff. Like, it does matter. Like, this is why they're hiding it, because the numbers are bullshit.
Because that difference, that 0.001 difference, is enough to make it match to anyone in the world.
Something like that. Let me hold on. Let me pull this up and read. And then also, this is just crazy. I need to like talk this out with you guys. So, Papa Roger, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, GEDmatch was bought in end of January 2023 by a foreign company, like some molecular biology company, and everyone's DNA that was on there, they got sold, but that's besides the point. 150 mil. Now, that might be, like, GEDmatch is what law enforcement needs to have. They need to have their hands in there. If they don't have their hands in there, they lose the effective law enforcement quote that they put in the sealed warrant for Brian's search warrant. They said effective law enforcement and publicly available tools. I think that's what they were talking about. I think that something was going on prior to March 1st, and they didn't want it getting out for whatever reason. So I started looking into like these companies and who owns GEDmatch and this and that, and there's like a trail of parent companies and, you know, being sold and for cash. Like, it's crazy. 150 million cash. Like, who has that? And it all happened right at the end of January. So that could be one reason why. Maybe they were waiting because, you know, GEDmatch was also hacked in 2023. And get this, the only things that happened when it got hacked, quote unquote, by a single user account was for 3 hours, everyone's profile was being shown, right? And then the next day it happened again, and everyone's profile was turned from, if they had chose opt out, they got transferred to opt in, right? Like, who do you think hacked it? Like, give me a break. Of course the feds hacked it. Like, they wanted to get all that information for themselves. You get what I'm saying? Like, why would just a regular person hack it just to change everybody to opt in? Like,
or nobody hacked it, and it was hacked from within, and it made it look like a hack.
Right, bingo. That's what I think. Because the guy that owns it, his name's Curtis Rogers, right? It's an old grandpa. He calls GEDmatch his quote-unquote baby, right? He ran it from, like, literally an old laptop and, like, some bullshit house in, like, Lake Worth, Florida. Like, just like a Florida house. Nothing fancy at all.
He's like some retired scientist or whatever.
Huh?
He's like some retired scientist.
Yeah, exactly. He did it as a hobby. Now, he was in charge, he was the administrator in a group of people with the surname Rogers, but not spelled with a D. It's just Rogers. That's the only thing. He was the administrator, so he was, quote-unquote, the father of all the people who were looking into their ancestry with the last name Rogers in that group, right? In the GEDmatch group. Because they have different people do that. They join, like, surname little clubs or whatever, and they all, like, help each other out, see if they're connected. So I kept thinking, like, what if someone in law enforcement, like, what if they were leaking that was Papa Rogers? And what if it was just like a, you know, trying to be funny? But Papa Rogers would be the father of this whole DNA thing that law enforcement got their hands on, because before this Golden State Killer, this wasn't a thing. It became a thing because of that. So because of GEDmatch letting law enforcement get their hands in it, it became, you know, like their favorite thing now. They use it for everything. It was supposed to be for violent crimes. Now it's for anything. Like, literally, like, they use a woman's DNA, right?
Yeah.
Who was raped. And instead of finding her attacker, you know what they did? They linked her to another crime for shoplifting and arrested her for that. like, it's just crazy. Like, it's really, it's funny, but it's not funny.
There's no bottom. There's just no bottom.
There's no, right now, there's no regulation. There's no rules. You have just, you know, the, whatever you call it, interim policy with that the DOJ put out. But other than that, it's like a free-for-all.
Well, that's the biggest problem I have right now with Hitler asking for them to do a mini DNA class for every hearing or every trial, for every single piece of evidence.
It really is.
If you don't have a standard already accepted on by the American Dental Association,
that's a problem.
Then how is it going to match up case by case? So you're writing the rules as you go along, and it's again like Ms. Potts says, you're moving the goalposts when it's convenient for you, and that's and you know they're clearly stating it when they say pay no attention to the 7 minutes.
Right.
You know.
Now, this is crazy. I was reading the interim policy, right, on the DOJ, and it says that it's basically just a suggestion, right? And except for federal agents, like federal departments, or any state or local that's receiving grant funding from Department of Justice or something. Now, the announcement that was on ISP's website about a grant, they had gotten like a bunch of money. I think it was like $5 million. I'll find the video. I'll post it. But they got all this money to do Idaho cold cases. So wouldn't that be considered a grant? Wouldn't that mean they have to, not an option, like they have to adhere by those guidelines because they're getting federal grant money? I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but let me pull up the video.
Okay. So yeah, that makes
it's a lot.
That makes sense. Okay, I know you get excited, and I am too.
I haven't even like connected it all in my head yet. I'm just like, it's like all these little things, and I need to like tie them together in a pretty package, and I can't do it by myself. I need your help.
Yeah, you give me a headache thinking about this, trying to twist my mind.
I know. How do you think I feel? I'm like,
oh my gosh.
Like, I probably have saved literally like 500 things, like between screenshots and videos, in 24 hours. It's really, it's a lot. So I feel Hitler's pain. I do.
Do you think? Oh gosh, what question was I going to ask you? Okay, you saw the video we played from Rolamato earlier, right? I don't know if you caught that. If you were still.
No, I wasn't on.
Okay, well, I apologize. I forgot the name of the girl. He was playing a video from a lady who had searched on the genetic genealogy of the Koberger family, and on like whatever DNA.com, and she found just one leaf, and it was his father. So do you think that possibly it would Rolo it would be possible that his DNA was already in the database? You know what I mean? I'm sorry?
Now, okay, so again, I don't know shit about DNA. I've just been looking into it recently. So, basically, okay, like I'm gonna read you this thing. It says, as a marker of lineage, the Y chromosome, when doing an inference to ancestry, like any kind of connection, the testing needs to be considered in context. So it's like, what are you comparing it to, right? So I can't even explain it. Let me not even try, because I don't even understand it myself. But it's something with, I feel like there's a reason they waited and collected his dad's, because they had plenty of ways to get his DNA. They could have just asked WSU for their help and went in his office. You know what I'm saying? Like,
time and time again. Yeah, absolutely.
They took his dad's for a reason. I don't think they ever had Brian's, and that's why they're wanting to hide everything before that, like the whole process before that. Because, you know, DNA now, they can sequence like in like within a day or less. I don't know, hours. There's so much crazy technology out there, and consider that with the fact that that study that they did, where they can basically narrow down 90% of the population within a third cousin, just based off of whatever profiles GEDmatch had on their site, because GEDmatch allows up to 5 raw data files from other companies, right? So if you have 23andMe, Ancestry, whatever, you could download your raw data file and then you upload it. So you can download like multiple companies. So they're all going to be a little different, how they decipher it. Because some of them, like 23andMe and Ancestry, theirs is proprietary. You buy the DNA kit from them directly. You know what I'm saying? So with all this, if I'm understanding it correctly, because I really don't know if I am, but all this human genome sequencing, the Human Genome Project, where they sequence the entire human genome, and there's just that 0.1 whatever % of difference. If you have multiple interpretations of DNA from multiple sources in different data files that are now being compiled into one, like, I feel like there's got to be a way to just fake someone's DNA, basically. I mean, shit. You know what I'm saying? I feel like maybe we found him because of his dad. Like, I feel like that's bullshit. And that's why they're hiding everything prior to that, because they didn't have his DNA until they arrested him.
Excuse me, 1 second. In this case, we see all the tentacles dangling in front of us, clearly. But it's so difficult to put them together, I think. And I think
100%.
that's exactly right where you are right now. It's
like everything will connect up until one thing won't. Then you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
And then you go look at that into that one thing, and then you'll find out like 20 more things, and it's like, oh my god, I can't. Like, that's why I'll start to put a video together, and it's so hard for me to decide where to stop, because everything's connected in some weird way, or it's just it's crazy.
Well,
I feel like this is bigger. I feel like this is way bigger. This is scary big.
You were clearly watching JJ and I talk, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
One of these days I'll be able to have a panel and have everybody on at the same time, and we could take our turns talking. I dream of that day. But anyway, his viewpoint was along the lines that it's bigger than we even think it is. That it, like, with, for example, all along, I hate Bill Thompson. Bill Thompson's a so-and-so and this and that. And he's just the guy getting the strings pulled.
Right,
and we look...
He's just the face of all the bullshit. I don't think he even knows half the bullshit,
I feel he's pretty informed, and if you saw that Lana video, I wouldn't mind playing it. Rolo, post the link to that number 9 video, and I'll play it for you. But I'll play the Lana video real quick here while everybody's together. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
You remember there was articles coming out in the beginning about Brian's neighbor who said that he had taken an ancestry test and how he was, saying, can you guess what my ancestry is? And the neighbor was like, Italian. And he's like, no, German. Okay. The company that bought GEDmatch is a German company, a German molecular biology company. Anyway, so remember Anne in court was asking, she was talking about the IgD, and the judge was like, well, are you saying that he's uploaded his own DNA as a customer? Is that what you're asserting? And she was like, let me answer you this way. Like, she was beating around the bush and playing dumb, in my opinion. Like, she didn't want to lie to him, but she didn't want to answer the question. Do you remember that?
You're talking about Mavit.
I'm talking about Ann Taylor.
Ann Taylor, okay.
The last hearing, when she was talking to the judge about the IgG and how when it got from the FBI, the sample was larger, et cetera, and how he was saying, how does he have a third-party interest in his relative's DNA, right? But he asked her, he was like, are you asserting that Brian uploaded his own DNA as a customer of one of these websites?
Right, yeah, okay, I do remember that being a point of contention.
She answered, she was playing dumb, I think. She was like, Well, I don't know why we're here if they don't have his DNA in the knife sheath. Like, she said something that didn't even make sense. And then he asked again. And she's like, well, I would answer it this way. And then she gave him some answer that didn't even really answer his question. It was a yes or no question. Then she was like, that's when she said, so then she said it's a loaded question when he asked her a third time. Like, she was avoiding answering whether or not Brian had ever taken his own DNA test. Now, those articles that came out from the neighbor said Brian had taken his DNA test and was talking to the neighbor about it. And that he was really interested in his ancestry. Like, what if, I feel like he found out something that he shouldn't, and he that's why he was framed, and maybe the whole wearing gloves and separating his trash is true, and he didn't want his DNA to get in the trash. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, he knew.
He knew that was being framed.
He knew that he was scared of it potentially happening, possibly. I mean,
because he knew the man who knew too much.
Right, bingo. Because cloud forensics, like, what does that have to do? Like, he was studying like psychology and criminal justice. Like, isn't cloud forensics? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's like computer stuff, right?
Cloud forensics is absolutely computer based, sure, absolutely.
Right, I don't remember him taking any kind of like science or computer like math. You know what I'm saying? A psychology degree. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I feel like maybe it has something to do with this whole genealogy controversy with privacy issues. You know, that everybody is up in arms about. Not anymore, really. I mean, it was a big deal a few years ago, but it doesn't seem to have, that much public uproar anymore. I think that's why they're kind of trying to keep it under wraps, because if no one talks about it and it's not documented, then
that's great.
Figure out your facial features. They can like come up with like a composite image of someone from their DNA. They can even, it's a lot. It's a big deal. People are like, what do I care if they have my DNA? I'm not going to commit a crime. It's not about that. Like, in California, there's apartments, like senior apartments, that require an Alzheimer's, they ask the question basically if the person that's moving in is genetically predisposed to Alzheimer's or not. Because...
Like an old age home?
Enter your apartment without... Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like a waiver. So, like, they use it against you medically, for insurance. Like, it can tell a lot. Our genes and our DNA tells a lot. It's very personal. It's not the same as, like, a fingerprint or any of that. Like, they can tell traits, predisposition to breast cancer, addiction. If you're, the Hatfield and McCoys, right? That whole story? Mm-hmm. Apparently, like, they found there was, like, a gene in the McCoy side that there were tumors or something somewhere in their body, and like that was whatever other things that it caused, that genetic mutation caused, was the reason that they were like so like
prone to violence,
like ornery. Like there's a lot they can, and that they have like the HIPAA laws and stuff, but that doesn't cover all this. Like they can be used against us. It really can. It's scary.
That's Jen. That's really good. That is honestly just touching the surface of it, because remember how we were talking about like the stingrays and these type of things. Whatever we find out now is 20 to 30 years old at this point, I believe, and I think the same goes for the DNA. And JJ and I kind of touched on it, just briefly, but we mentioned Jeffy Eppy. I think he brought it up just for a moment, and remember I keep saying that the best and Purge and I, or Purge, Twiz and I, it's been a point of contention whether or not it's in the best interest of all parties involved, meaning the state, law enforcement, FBI, that Kohberger gets taken out. And I think that is the logical conclusion to everything, because you can't try a dead man. You have lawsuits, you have careers at risk, you have secret societies at risk of being exposed by him getting off. Because when he gets off, the gloves are... You want to talk about the Franks, the gloves are off. When he's out, then it all comes out on paper. And the easiest thing... and I think the hesitation is with Trump doing all these Freedom of Information Act things, that it is where it's coming from, because they're worried that whether it's today, tomorrow, or 10 years from now, their activities will be exposed. And so they could easily take him out. And the only thing is, they have so many different ways of taking someone down now. You have COVID, you have heart attack, you have car crash, you have put porn on their computer.
You know?
Yeah, and they can easily not only... Okay, say you have CP on your computer.
Right, they'll put it on your computer.
Even your family... Yeah, that's the point of dissension, where even your family is going to walk away at that point. Oh, he had that. I don't want... It's like with COVID, it's the wonder disease, because if somebody had COVID, nobody's going to do an autopsy. The family's not allowed to see the body. It's burned. There's no evidence. So you can say anybody had COVID, and they didn't. And it's proven that people that were in car accidents during the pandemic were listed down on COVID statistics.
Yeah.
And so, no, you're not wild on this at all.
It's a lot. It's so much. Like, shit, I was just thinking of something.
Hold on. Take a breath for a second. I'm going to play a piece of Rolo here. And, and we'll come back.
The video
yeah, take a breather. I'll check out for a minute. And we'll listen to this.
I'm muting you so I can unmute the computer.
Okay.
Abandoned, crash, whatever. Link supposedly had previously been owned by that nasty. Well, I don't know if anybody ever took the time to take a look at the inside. But you guys see that red stuff right there? Yeah. Pretty crazy, huh? Right there. What does it look like? Yeah. And what about this? Remember Said's phone? I always kind of thought it was a second floor, but I was like, something was off, you know? The height of the little wall. But I took a more deep look into it. And you see that? You see in the middle, in between both doors, between the restroom and the room, there's a little door that opens up. Closet. That's the door that's right there on the left by the thumb. And you see on the inside, those the black lines, that's the bed inside the room. Yeah. Remember? The bed was to the left. Yeah. Yeah. That closet door was throwing me off. It was open. I was like, damn, you know. The bathroom door doesn't open outward, so, you know, but it's a closet door that's open right there. And those black lines are basically from the bed, from the inside, you know what I mean? And somebody sitting down right there with the blue tarp laid out, so to save the bodies, you know what I mean? There's something that's been bothering me a lot. Is the last call from Kaylee being pushed from 252 to 256. I wonder why.
Olivia Gonzalez says she discovered at least 6 calls from her sister Kaylee's phone between 2:26 and 2:52 made to a boyfriend in the early morning of November 13th.
Now trip out on this right here, all right?
Olivia says Kaylee made a call to her boyfriend at 2:56 a.m., but he didn't answer.
2:52
at 2:56 a.m.
2:52
at 2:56 a.m.
2:52.
Y'all want to know why this timeline is super important? It's because it makes a big difference, 252 was before this body count started. I mean, at 254 is more or less when it started, 253 and some seconds. So if they say 256, it means they were still alive, but it kind of clears on these fellas right here, you know what I mean? With the body counts that are filming all this. You know what I mean? So, what do you think's going on right here? Well, I got a few versions for you guys, different ones, so you guys should stick around. This is a good one right here. Real good. But, yeah, I mean, this is when the body count starts, right after that last call, 252, and, I mean, look at where the sea is at, that little, where it's blue right there in the window. Look what's going on over there. Second floor, also where they took the last picture. Look what's going on up there.
Sorry, Rolla. I wanted to check this out. Real quick. Let me see what's going on here. I can make that bigger. Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Monroe police criminal complaint. What do we got here, Heather? Docket number, date filed 12/30/22. PA, defendant also known as, who was this? Hispanic of origin. Colleen Mancuso. Brian Christopher Koberger. Alright, so this is the arrest affidavit, I guess, of the Pennsylvania. What am I looking for here, Heather? You lost me here, sorry. What am I looking for? I have laundry done, and the guys, I gotta get to it before the thing closes, or I'm gonna lose my laundry. Heather's not gonna answer questions. She just posted a link. All right, well, we'll put a feather in the cap of that. Jen, are you ready to finish up on that?
No, I'm not yet.
Okay, that's fine. You want me to play roller a little more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Over there to the left, all the way to the left in the bottom, where under the R, you see where the like kind of yellow, right there where the R ends, right there at the bottom and the top, right there where you can see like something blue. Yeah, there's something going on over there too. On the left side of the screen, on the bottom. I mean, where it looks yellow, and right now where it looks white too. I mean, like a boiler or something, but it's not a boiler. It's something. You'll see, just trip on right there, And where it's under the R, where it's dark too, where it's red right now. Yeah, where it's right over there, like in between the R and the right there by the stairs, right there in the middle of the screen. I mean, you'll see. Look at right there where the little window is at, where the C, where it looks black. Right on the right side of the screen. I mean, trip on that too. You know what I'm saying? You guys can pause, zoom in, whatever. Oh, right here's going to be somebody standing right there by that window. Watch. It already passed.
All right, Jen.
There's so much shit. Hold on.
I honestly, you guys, I have to shut it down. I knew I would go long with JJ, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. He is. I don't even think I touched the surface with JJ tonight. I wish I could have gone another hour. I know Jen wanted to come up here, and she shared some great stuff. And we didn't even get to Rockford tonight, so I do have to shut it down. And is there anything you wanted to add right now, Jen? Or?
Yeah, I just want everyone to be pissed off because people are making billions of dollars off of our DNA. Like, they're charging these cops like $1,500 per upload, you know, buying companies for $150 million cash. Like, everyone's making money but us, you know? Like, that just, it makes me angry to make all
It's another thing, like, with the metadata, where they're just stealing from us. And
right, like, they give us a cut down, like...
right?
If my DNA is going to end up getting my, you know, my this girl, her grandmother got arrested for something that she did when she was way, way young because of her doing a DNA test. Like, you know...
No, that's crazy.
It's like, I just got my grandma arrested, I just got my son arrested, whatever the situation is, and you didn't even, you know, they're making money off that. Like, it's just, it's fucked up. It's so fucked up.
Okay, well, good night, everybody. That's the show. I will do one tomorrow, Jen, if you'll be here.
That's why I wanted to talk to you beforehand, because I needed to, like whiteboard it with you, because it's a lot.
Well, we're all on the same page as you, for sure, and...
my head has been spinning for, like, 2 days looking into this shit. Like, I can't even, like, I can't...
I think we're all that way, because we really don't have anybody to tell about it, and you're like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to freak out about this, and I didn't want to tell them that. So do you think you can come back on tomorrow night for, like, a quick show?
Yeah.
And we'll expound upon that, and we'll do some more stuff, and I'll finish Roller's video, and I'll play that other one he wants us to play. So thank you for being here, everybody. If you're new to The Purge, I'm Kane B. I'm your host of this show. We do this kind of same content every few days, and we're trying to get to the bottom of this. Please hit that subscribe button for me, and hit like on your way out. Guys, I appreciate you being here. And say goodnight, Jen.
Good night, Jen.
All right, everybody. I'll let the chat run while I run down the street, and y'all have a great evening. I hope you stay warm.